hear about this game Abandoned?
No.
It's like this first-person horror thing coming to PS5. It looks in the style of an RE7, which is cool. The screenshots were better than the teaser trailer, in my opinion, but that's not my point. Apparently, there were rumors right after it was revealed that Kojima was behind it, which did not turn out to be true.
That's that one. Okay.
Yeah. And I get why some people made the connection, although still, I thought it was funny because it quickly proposed the question to me of, like, if you were a small indie studio working on a game, how would you feel if once you announced it, everyone just presumed it was
Kojima?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel pretty good.
I would too. I think, but like,
I thought you were going to say they made a game about my dad.
It depends, because then when it's not Kojima, then all the people who would have been your fans are now disappointed, maybe. Or you spin it the other way and you go, no way, no, we've got an editor here. So you could go either way with it, I guess.
I thought you were going to say the opposite of what do you think Kojima thinks about it?
Oh.
Where, like, or if you were a game director and then every once in a while when something would get announced, everybody thought it was thought it was you.
Kojima has been in the past a pretty big supporter of other weird indie shit he thinks is doing cool stuff.
For sure.
I played that game Framed because of Kojima.
What was Framed?
Framed is it's a mobile game, but I think it's also on PC. It's a playable comic.
Okay.
So
like
the whole thing is organized into comic book frames, and your guy runs from frame to frame, but
like
each
Comic Zone?
But each one is a different angle. So it'll be like, here's a hallway with a door, and he runs up, opens the door, and goes through, and then the next frame is from the opposite end of that hallway, so you see him running towards the camera, and then the next one he's running away from the camera. And you can see, like, guards position on the next frame, so you know when your guy is going to cross by the guard's thing, and you have to, like, move the frames around so that he goes past without crossing the guards.
Sounds all right. I
it's pretty cool.
That. What is it on?
I played it on iOS. I don't know if it's on anything else.
We're starting this off with the sale.
Man, if only people stopped stealing my information. If only I had.
You're gonna say Express or NordVPN? Which one got hacked?
Yeah.
NordVPN got hacked.
LifeLock was the guy that gave away a social security number.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. People donated money in his name.
The last thing I was going to say about Abandon, though, is Kojima also has a history of fake game company and, like, you know, the way that Phantom Pain was.
What are you talking about? That studio with the guy who burned his face in an accident, that was totally legit.
Wasn't it like Moby Dick or Blue Whale or something?
Yeah, exactly. It was Moby Dick Studios. Yep, exactly. It was a real thing.
7780 is the studio that made
the PT. One.
Yeah.
If I was at Indie Studio, I would find Kojima's like cousin or something like that and hire him on board. And be like,
then
be
he
takes
takes
guys.
his face off and it's Kojima.
It's Kojima.
Like E3 or something.
No, dude, we don't have Hideo Kojima. We have Hideo Bojima. It's his second cousin. Or I would try and spin it, and I would be like, no, but we would love to hear Mr. Kojima's feedback on our game.
No, yeah, that would be. I actually don't know where this studio is from. I think part of the reason that people jumped, like, on connecting those dots, it was
because they share the same office.
no, it was that nobody could find anything on them. They just registered a domain or something.
This is when we find out that's no indie game studio. That's a tax scheme. They're based out of Panama.
Yeah. We just opened a game studio in the Cayman Islands.
Invest here.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the new and improved Hot Button. We know it's been a while, but it'll all be worth it once you hear what exciting topics we have in store, such as this one. See, 2021 not only marks the return of us, but also the return of G4, a once dead-as-hell television network whose main mission was to create and air programs exclusively centered around all things tech and video games. It was pretty important to me growing up as far as my TV watching goes, and honestly, just wild to see something that dedicated to the industry and culture on such a large, expensive scale, especially when you consider how niche and nerdy gaming as a hobby used to be perceived as. So where did it come from, and what the hell happened to it? It seemed like a recipe for at least a minor success in the era of cable, right? Well, what do you say we hop in our time machines and find out just how it rise quickly crashed hard into their unfortunate downfall, along with what they are currently building with their now soon-to-be rebirth. As I said before, this is Hot Button 2.0. I'm your host for today, Randall Beatrice, here with Austin Blakesley.
Yo.
Chris Nudaboom.
Hello.
And joining us over the internet, Andrew Banks.
Hi, I'm live from New York.
What's it like all the way out there?
It's a lot like not being here, I guess, because I'm just in my office, so I could be anywhere. It doesn't really matter.
Reporter on the scene.
Yeah, he's holding a microphone outside his apartment.
He's like talking into a camera, but there's no camera there.
What's the weather like? What time is it?
You should see the weird looks everybody's giving me as they walk their dog.
New York seems like the type of place you could open your window and ask for somebody's screaming, ask for someone's opinion, and have someone respond.
Yeah, but the answer is always shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Exactly. So who's ready to get nostalgic, then annoyed, then accepting, then hopeful?
Is that the stages of
Definitely
grief?
laughing.
Yeah.
It is with G4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It'll be a fun ride either way, but let's roll.
Quick anecdote.
Yeah.
When we first got digital cable box at my house,
okay,
and we had all the extra channels.
Yeah.
All I did was watch G4 and Nickelodeon Gas. So we have to do an episode of
about
Nickelodeon
games and sports. I was on Gas.
Let's do a Nick Arcade episode.
That would be kind of funny. Is Nick Arcade streaming anywhere? Is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
If it was, it would be on Paramount Plus.
You think they have the? Oh, I guess so.
Subscribe using coupon code HOT.
That's not.
Doesn't work. I made it up.
So just to paint a little picture, our story begins in the early aughts. The growth of video games as a commercial medium was reaching an all-time high. Home computers were now ubiquitously a part of almost every American household. The Game Boy Advance was dominating the handheld market. The console wars were raging hard between the Xbox, GameCube, and still best-selling system of ever, the PlayStation 2.
Never heard of it.
It played DVDs.
Oh. Yeah, well, Game Boy Advance played those little portable 140p episodes or whatever.
Yeah, you can watch Tenet on Game Boy Advance. You can't watch Tenet on DVD.
And I was gonna say the Xbox you could play DVDs. You just needed the
remote.
The remote.
And
the
GameCube was a dumb console that didn't have full-size discs.
The
Panasonic.
The Panasonic Cube could play.
Yes,
I knew that was gonna come up.
Guess what? The remote for it itself is $85. Not even
the
for
console's $2,000.
Yeah, the console's like working. Yeah, like 800 or
people
900.
have modded them to be. Sorry, I can't get into. So no longer was anyone fearing a repeat of the crash of '83. Games were here to stay. Minus the Dreamcast, I guess. But yeah, there was money to be made, is my point. And searching to capitalize on this was a man named Charles Hirschhorn, the then president of Disney Animation. Although it wasn't just all cartoons for him, as he absolutely saw the potential in jumping on the popularity of video games, as well as their path to being more respected in broader terms with what they could achieve graphically and technically. You remember that was like a big thing of the era of just like, these aren't the games you grew up with. Look what they look like now.
The Attitude Era extended into video games as well as wrestling.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
The minute John Carmack gave away a Ferrari, I was like, video games are here forever.
Yeah. that was the thing.
That was the moment.
What about when oh damn it, I don't remember his name, the Gizmondo guy split his Ferrari in half. That was my moment.
Future spoilers, dude.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
We'll get to the Gizmondo someday.
We will. So why wasn't there a channel that focused on this stuff? He thought, and he was right. There really wasn't anything to closely engage with that audience outside of occasional E3 footage on news outlets or Spike. There were other places on television for food, music, home and gardening, animals, movies, of course. It made sense to have something fill the void when studies showed just how much of the younger and hipper demographic were sitting in front of that boob tube. I was looking for an excuse to say that phrase again, because I don't think anyone's uttered it in like 20 years.
What, boob tube?
Boob tube. Yeah. I want to bring it back.
Yeah, boobs.
Now, Tech TV did exist at this point, launching back in '98. Of course, then it was known as ZD TV. Regardless, it wasn't exactly what Hirschhorn was talking about. That was more geared to the computer engineering crowd and far from the energetic entertainment someone who was actively playing a Quake or EverQuest was yearning for. Not only that, but it wasn't really available to the masses either. So I don't know actually even how many American providers offered it as an option. Probably not many. And yeah, keep this in mind for later, too. A video I took ample notes on also brought up a website called Suedo.com. Pseudo. Man, this is the problem with writing.
That's my dog.
Yeah. Though this is with a P.
Oh, yeah. No, never mind. That's not my dog.
Sorry, Pseudo. That featured the All Games Network channel. However, it did require a solid broadband connection. And even then, the picture output was small and not great. Couldn't full screen shit at the time. Meanwhile, online communities through sites such as IGN and GameSpot could only offer so much in terms of the same thing. Recognizing this problem, Hirschhorn went to visit the aforementioned E3 Trade Expo to meet those working in the field and do research. It was loud, packed, and full of passion. This honestly was all he really needed to see to reinforce his big idea. A channel to grab in the teenage age group that advertisers so desperately wanted to reach. After all, think of the exposure that developers, publishers, and manufacturers would finally get for the first time ever. Game commercials were a thing, but this would be different. Tonally and aesthetically, it was decided that it would present itself with an unconventional vibe not dissimilar to an MTV. Which likely shared many viewers during its initial run, an early MTV, when it still had its, quote, rebellious attitude and underground feel. Is that what you guys
they didn't have a budget. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, actually, that's... Nah, it's indie, man.
So they're looking to make shows like Next and Bully Beatdown.
Punk rock.
Yeah.
Bully Beatdown.
I do remember trying to look up E3 videos on the internet in... this would have to be pre-broadband for me. So you'd spend like half an hour downloading on very good dial-up, half an hour downloading like a 10-second clip of Majora's Mask or whatever, and you're like, man, that might be pretty good, I guess.
God, downloading like game trailers. I did that a lot, and they did take forever.
I'm gonna make an embarrassing confession.
This is
back in the day of Kazaa and LimeWire and BearShare. But anybody who used BearShare, you know what they're using it for.
Morpheus is another one.
Oh yeah, Morpheus.
I
was mostly a Kazaa and LimeWire guy.
I was Kazaa at the start, then went to LimeWire.
Yeah.
I tried to download...
Napster predated me just a little bit.
Yeah. I tried to download a video game trailer.
Oh, what was it?
I cannot remember at the time, but all I really remember was it was like an M-rated game that I wanted to play.
Was it because it was M-rated?
The file size... I know now...
Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball.
Something along those lines. Yes. Something along those lines of like scantily clad, anyway. I tried to download it, and it downloaded very, very quickly.
What else did it give you with it?
It bricked my computer.
Woo!
Yeah.
Computer herpes.
Computer herpes.
It bricked the compact family computer that we had.
How'd you explain that to the
didn't.
household?
I didn't.
You're like, I don't know what.
Well, you gotta remember, like when we turned our computer back on, there was a hard drive disk read error. So what we had to do is like just basically wipe it, reformat it, do everything, and it was fine. But that was also back in the day when like nobody knew what was going on. It was just like, oh, we got a virus.
Also,
right?
antivirus stuff has gotten so much better over the years that I don't know if there's...
nowadays, all you really need is Windows Defender if you're using Windows.
You have to go out of your way to get
really,
to find a virus that'll brick your PC.
But seeing as like even back then, my brother Matt and myself were the IT technicians for our parents' computers.
Yeah.
It was just like
you probably are now.
The onus was
we
still
too,
are.
yeah.
Trust me, we still are. The onus was on us to fix it, and that's like just what I did. I just said, we got a virus. Don't worry, I already fixed it.
Called Geek Squad.
Didn't say why. And then my parents were like, oh, thank God you fixed it. And I was like, you didn't ask who caused it.
Your dad was downloading this game trailer, and then the whole thing just shut off. So this was an interesting pitch for sure, and Hirschhorn got hard to work getting funding, talent, producers together, to launch what we all knew as G4 on April 24th, 2002. Right after a hell of a year for some amazing releases. So the tagline was TV for gamers, the number 4.
Ah, that's clever.
Yeah.
No one's done that before.
I resonate with that.
It was straight and to the point.
Dude, lead speak, dude.
With the name seemingly being selected at random by Hirschhorn's wife to land a snappy-sounding URL that wasn't already taken. I guess, when was the .com boom or bubble?
Late 90s.
Only a few years earlier.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it had burst a few years earlier, I guess, is the more accurate way to put it.
Yes.
Everyone acquiring as many domains as...
At first, his wife wanted Goatsy, but they quickly found out that was already taken.
Then they tried Lemon Party.
Yeah. Then blink-182.com.
It wasn't used. It was primarily promoted through magazines and devoted sites, press statements prior to the date, but it wasn't overly aggressive. Remember, they wanted to be cool, and cool spreads best with word of mouth. What certainly wasn't as cool, though, was that they were owned by cable company and local nemesis to us, Easterners, Comcast.
I thought you were going to say Leland Yee.
Dun, dun, dun.
No, he's West Coast.
Yeah, Comcast, the Leland Yee of the East.
I've heard that about him.
Yeah.
But hey, if it's one thing they got, it's cold, hard cash. To back a venture like this, anyway. And I guess anything else.
Yeah, they better be able to start TV for gamers. I pay them $100 a month.
for promised gigabit internet.
Yeah, promised.
Promised.
The key word there.
Promised.
So, the time was now to pull those enthusiasts in. The first week it went live, they cutely aired a nonstop Pong marathon. Once curiosity was then piqued, their lineup of fully original programming would hit. So, you guys want to run through the opening wave of 13 shows? Maybe a chat for
Campus
a minute
PD?
or two about each? No, that's
Campus
way
PD
later.
was way later. Yeah.
Cheaters.
And just for the record, to our listeners, we did take the time last week to sit down and revisit at least one episode of each one, which was very amusing, as some did hold up way better than others. All right, I don't know the sequence of how these went out hour to hour, so we'll just read them off alphabetically. Starting with Arena.
Hell
Banger.
Yeah.
This was their competitive multiplayer gaming show where teams of esports athletes would be pitted against each other in fierce contest. It was initially hosted by Will Wheaton and Travis Oates, with the tournament typically being done in 3 rounds on 3 different games through LAN. They'd even interview members of the said teams in between matches. And what was also neat about it was that not all the games chosen were the obvious ones. I don't actually remember the details of the prize pool, but I'll tell you that will come up again.
Bragging rights.
Yeah, to you youngins, this is what we had before Twitch.
So who wants to explain the seemingly normal one we watched?
Which
Anybody
one?
want to take that?
Okay, I'll do it.
Oh, the episode.
The one of the teams was named Teen Minority for the exact reason that you think they would be named Teen
Well,
Minority.
hold on. What were the 4 represented races?
White, Italian, like Puerto Rican, and
I think it was Asian.
Asian. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about what Ray Cheese person was, but also they interviewed the white guy a lot, which is...
He was kind of the spokesperson.
Well, the white guy, not the Italian guy, who is
Yeah.
also very much so white.
We couldn't figure out which was which at first, but the white guy had bleached blonde hair, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, that
the
made him stick out.
was it the other one was like Team Critical or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Something like that.
So they played.
I think Minority might have been on the show
So
a few times.
the way Arena works is they play 3 games,
Yeah.
and it's like 2 like competitive games and then a console game in between. So in this episode, it was Capture the Flag in Unreal Tournament.
Yeah.
2003.
Team Minority versus Castaways.
Castaways. That was
Okay,
it.
that was it.
Yeah.
Unreal
So-
Tournament 2003 was the game.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think so. Capture the Flag in that.
That would
and
have
then-
aligned with the timeline.
Then
right?
console game was Tekken 4?
Yep, where
Andrew?
they played best of one, which like nobody does in any fighting game ever.
Hey man, they only got 22 minutes, right? And then they played Tekken 4, and then the last thing.
This is why I said seemingly normal, because we saw the thumbnail and just.
Well, this is Andrew's fault, because Andrew was like, we have to get one of the episodes with the VR.
Oh
rig.
right, yeah, it wasn't even the thumbnail. That was like,
Yep.
yeah, Andrew, you brought this up, and we searched for it, and it's the
so they
craziest shit I've ever
So they play America's Army, but they don't play America's Army competitively. What they did was they played in these like beachhead-looking VR rigs.
Yeah, a co-op mission.
But they played a co-op mission each, and I still don't know who won that. I was paying attention enough, but I don't know what happened or who did better or what the objective was.
No, it was
Well,
extremely tough to follow.
Because they also did the thing where there was like a thumbnail-sized thing in the bottom of the game, and then they just show these dudes in these like weird like VR setups.
So the objective was a Black Hawk Down sort of scenario, but like in one of them there was like friendly fire where they like immediately killed their teammate, and then the other one I think they just like left without completing the objective or something. So yeah, like for what you said, it was hard to tell who won because they both failed in very different ways.
Yeah, but and then they do like points. So you get like 2 points for each of the PC games and 1 point for the console game. And then 2 points for having the MVP on your team, and then 1 point for something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
so
familiar.
who won in the end of the episode between the two teams? Does anybody?
I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you.
We
that.
watched that whole thing.
Like we got to hear them make jokes about being minorities, and then like,
I think
the fight.
And there was a dick joke around somebody's username too.
Yeah.
Oh yes, there was, because they all have their own.
It was like magic wand or something like that.
Magic stick.
Magic stick.
It has to be
was
Magic Stick because like that's the song was probably out at the time. Yeah, and they're like, oh, he's working too much on his Magic Stick, like something like that.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I think Team Minority might have won, and I think it would because the dude with the bleached tips got MVP. But I don't remember.
The VR thing was like that old VR style headset where it like you literally had all the wires were hung from the ceiling. It came down to a helmet.
That's what I also was
like
saying.
the
Like
classic,
beachhead,
like
it does look
the
like
classic, like this is gonna wipe your mind, and they put the helmet on. All the cords are coming down.
And if any of our listeners have seen the movie First Kid with Sinbad, it's
I
like
haven't
that.
even
It's,
seen that
it's
movie.
like that.
Fun fact: so that
There's
that
a scene in that where he plays VR in a mall. It's like that.
yeah, that place that they got the VR from.
Disney Quest.
Yeah.
No,
R.I.P.
that's where it probably
Yeah.
went to. No, they got it from the virtual reality arcade in Duluth, Georgia, which is still around today. Why do I know that? Why do I know that? Because
That's a good
I
question.
remember the name Duluth, Georgia, like the place Duluth, Georgia, and for whatever reason, like I was like, I got to see if this place is still around. It is. But like 2 weeks prior to that, I was looking at like the convention center in Duluth, Georgia, because like I don't know why. I cannot remember why.
We live very different lives.
We do. There was
after this pandemic though, let's make a trip down to this
We gotta
VR
go.
place that's been there for
it's still in business.
decades.
But I imagine that they didn't play each other because they didn't have enough VR headsets or VR.
Yeah,
VR,
I think you might have mentioned that at the
kits.
time because there's only
There's only-
three, I think.
there
right?
was
3 or 4. Oh, there are 4.
There
yeah.
was, like,
There are teams of 4.
Or was it teams of 5?
It should also be mentioned that this was not the first season
No, because
it was
Kevin
Kevin Pereira, not Will Wheaton.
Right? Was it Kevin Pereira?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was the big buff dude.
They were both
Him
there.
and
Oh,
they
okay,
were both there.
Okay, we'll
the,
get to
the
him
two guys
as well.
you mentioned weren't there. It was Big Buff
So-
Dude and Kevin Pereira.
Not loud.
The best was when like the big buff dude was like, now on to the co-host. You take it, big dog. Woof woof, Kevin. And he's just like, thanks.
That guy does look like a drill sergeant.
No, the best is like the fake army guy they got to give like the
Oh yeah.
the recap of the Black Hawk Down mission that they're going to be on, and we're just sitting there like, wait a minute, I know that guy. He pumped my gas earlier this week. Like, that guy served me coffee.
Yeah. And then they're like, now going to our field reporter who's 2 feet away.
Yep.
And there's this woman in a scarf. And she's just like, so what? Why do you think you want Unreal Tournament? He's like, I don't know, just play it like 30 hours a week. It's great.
Oh, I just quit my job for it. So like,
Dropped out of school. And So then there was the lesser-known Blister, hosted by warm-up comedian Bill Singlair. Its focus was on action adventure games, like it was previews, reviews, and conversations with their designers. This one was all right. I probably would have been into it more if I caught it regularly. And this apparently was the show that kicked it off after the Pong Marathon too. The episode of this that we watched.
Wait, you're telling me the professional warm-up comedian was the person warming up the channel after the Pong Marathon?
I guess that no, you're right. That
Makes sense.
That does. So they covered a swath of some neat shit. It was snappy, well edited, a bit more professional than some of the other stuff. I also believe this was the one where Andrew pointed out how much the dude sounded like actor Ezra Miller.
Is this that one?
I could be wrong. I was
The one that was like a Nintendo Direct a decade and a half prior?
Yes.
Where he's just like, here's Clock Tower 3. Clock Tower 2 was point and click. But this one, and then they like played like half the game and the dude's like explaining every mechanic and you're like, oh my god, I get it.
So next up was Cheat. This one kind of self-explanatory, as it was all about code, strategies, and hidden secrets in games. It was originally hosted by Corey Rouse. I did check into Cheat a few times. Anyone remember a bit of the episode we checked out for that one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony Hawk, and then more Tony Hawk.
There was a lot. Again, each version, like, because that was the era when like the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox had different cheat codes.
Yeah.
I guess, if it's not already obvious, this is the time before achievements and leaderboards, and
I remember specifically.
This is probably the last set generation, or
yeah. Well,
like,
360 was the online achievement. All I remember is every single time they got done with their spiel and would go to commercial break, they'd be like, to see the cheats in this episode, visit g4tv.com/cheats. And Andrew just goes, so why does the show exist?
Why did I watch the show? I could just go on the site and look up the cheats for the game I actually care about. Yeah.
And GameFAQs was already a thing by the time the show started airing.
It was.
And even on dial-up, you could access it pretty easily and quickly.
Hey, you can even scroll through Tips and Tricks magazine. I like the one thing though. They didn't always just do codes. They also was like, here's how you win in Halo 2, and then
it felt like they were pivoting away from that because it's like, okay, cheat codes are becoming less of a thing, and the show has less of a reason to exist if we focus just on cheat codes, you know?
It was Cheat the one where they gave the full rundown of like essentially how to beat Ratchet and Clank from start to finish, and it was like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, first you got to do this, head to this planet, then you got to do this and grab this and pay 500 bolts, which you could get like this. And then they literally gave a rundown of like how to beat Ratchet and Clank, but they summarized it in like 2 minutes. But it was just so
like the whole.
But like you wouldn't understand what they were talking about unless you had actually played the game.
Yeah,
because they're like, because I was even struggling. I was like, what planet are they going to?
Yeah, like I played this game, and I guess they expect you to TiVo it and like pause it, and, like.
But like not only that, but that game shows you like objective markers on your map. You're not really going to get lost trying to figure out how to beat Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, that's also true.
But I guess if I did want to know, I could always just go to their website.
But yeah, I enjoyed it, but not nearly as much as what I'm about to say. Without irony, might be my favorite use of an open television block ever, Cinematech. A wonderful collection of various game cutscenes, trailers, and other random B-roll, each put together in a scrolling video showcase. Usually was shown later at night, and was the only program of theirs not to use a host or a narration, with one notable exception, the episode that we watched. But it often included titles from any era on any platform. I loved it. It was the best thing ever to fall asleep to.
It's ingenious, really.
Yeah.
Because you're getting 30 minutes of programming out of essentially like somebody went in After Effects for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And like
it had to be so inexpensive to produce.
Now it's fun to watch because you're like, oh man, remember that game? But at the time it was like I couldn't just go on Twitter and see a company post a trailer.
Totally.
So I did discover games through Cinematech.
Me too.
Like because a lot of their programming was very focused on the lines of like, here's what's coming. And Cinematech was like, here's what's already happened.
Yeah.
And when you're fucking 12,
maybe you missed it.
And this is like you haven't had video games for a lot of your life, and you didn't have disposable income for a lot of your life. You didn't go around finding weird shit, and they're just like, here's this weird shmup that came out 10 years ago. And you're like,
yeah,
oh.
and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Hell yeah.
Check that out.
There's
The other thing about that show, though, is that because they showed mostly trailers, it was kind of like a whole string of commercials. But they were like commercials you were seeking out, I guess, if you were leaving the channel on. But then they go to commercial breaks in the middle of all these commercials. It's like when Skyrim was coming out, you might intentionally go to the YouTube trailer for Skyrim, and then the pre-roll ad would be that same trailer that you were navigating to. That's what it felt like.
So,
you know?
I was gonna say that's happened to me now though, where I want to look up a trailer for a movie and then I get an ad on YouTube, and you're just like, I'm already searching out your ad to watch.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm voluntarily watching an ad. Don't give me an ad.
Yeah.
How about another ad?
Yeah.
I mean,
And some segments
appreciate
of the
it.
show are also longer than others, so there'd be ones that were like a minute, but other ones that.
I appreciate that they didn't go the route that every other TV channel did, which was typically TV channels would fill that time block with infomercials.
Yeah.
Right? Like late night infomercials were essentially free ad revenue because, whatever company was hawking some snake oil at 3:00 in the morning to get every insomniac that was delusional to call in.
Right.
And trust me, I know that they were insomniacs and delusional. Because I was once the person on the receiving end of that phone call.
How many
one of my
copies of
jobs
Girls
at
Gone
high school.
Wild do you have?
No, but that's a story
Got the
for
whole
another
collection.
time. But I definitely have sold ShamWow and Clear Owens Dual Action Cleanse, the Total Body Purifier and Colon Cleanser. And I could tell you, hands down, and Procera the Mind Supplement, that the best calls that you ever
Say
got
Mind
were
Supplement?
overnight.
Yeah,
Of
you ever
course.
see Limitless? It's like
Yeah,
that.
it's like that.
First of all, G4 did have infomercials.
Did they?
As an insomniac.
Oh, I was like, I was gonna say we're
They
gonna
did,
get into
but
a bit
they
where
was
they
like
ran.
4 a.m.
Okay.
That's pretty late.
The later
Because
time
Comedy
slot.
Central was like 1 a.m. It's time to
Yep.
They
buy
would do
this book on how to
reruns.
resell houses or whatever.
I guess I'm surprised that Twitch doesn't have an official channel that's just something like this. That's just
Infomercials?
no, god damn it. That's just all footage of just random games that are available and out. And it's just like, even if you did a thing where it's like that you could link to a store page to buy it, or just like,
Yeah.
I would put that on at night when I was passing out. But it breaks my heart how many of those old episodes of Cinematech are still missing to this day, which unfortunately will be a running theme with most of the stuff.
They found a lot of them.
They did, and the people are trying to like. It's the earliest era of them that are.
Yeah, those are
tend to be,
long gone to time. Unless someone has a VHS copy. Like, the later ones they
Yeah.
found and put on archive.net, like someone went into the actual archive of G4 and found the footage for it, which was really cool. And was also 44 gigabytes.
Yes, I know. I torrented that
and-
motherfucker.
Yeah, and of course there's like 2-seaters on it when we're trying
I was
to
talking
download
to Chris about this not too long ago. Mark my words, if G4 comes back and they put old G4 shit on Peacock, I will sign up for Peacock.
I would too.
Yeah.
I absolutely. would.
Absolutely.
I mean, what
If they're like,
resolution did they film that stuff in?
here's every episode of Cinematech
We've
in
never seen
720.
it in HD,
Yeah.
like ever. Yeah, like it's and the if I haven't already said it, the this was probably their most like their cheapest.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because it was so a good portion of the captured footage came from interns working on the channel's other content. So it's like they'd have to play games for X-Play reviews or something, and then they could retool it.
What
for this.
music did they use in the background of
A
Cinematech?
lot of it was dope. Some of it would just be like stuff from other games. Like at first I thought it was like royalty free, just like electronic or music. Oh no, they're just like taking songs from like this game and then they're just overlaying with footage of this game and it works. Like they're kind of synced up. It's almost like their own music videos. Like, but it was neat.
Cinemateku.
Cinemateco.
Oh, we can talk about nocturnal emissions?
Not yet.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
So I know the quote 1998 greatest year in gaming episode was the one that we watched, which and that's sweet. I like that even if it was far from what that show typically was.
I mean, we've all seen
Yeah.
a lot of Cinematech.
Yeah, exactly, which is why
We had to watch the one that was different.
And,
but-
yeah, and then
'cause-
and cut with a whole bunch of interviews of figures that we still follow, to this day. So another one I quite dug was Filter, a show that counted down top 10 lists for numerous game-related topics. Some were genre-based, some were character-based, others were more specific. It was first hosted by actress Diane Mizota.
You're in the ballpark.
Okay. Who allowed registered users to cast their votes on the featured lists. I never got to submit. So who wants to tell everyone the episode of this that you guys insisted on putting on?
Top 10 bad girls.
Top 10 dominatrix characters.
No, that's what they wanted to
believe.
This was Chelsea's fault.
I kind of do
Previous
blame
guest,
Chelsea for this, but that she wasn't alone.
Oh, I backed her up, but I'm still gonna put the blame on her.
Because
I also picked this episode because we knew it was going to age poorly, and boy, were we right.
It's just funny because the bulk of Filter was much more respectable than that. It's akin to like a Watch Mojo, but this was straight up like they're interviewing these awkward dudes at a GameStop about like
that's
it was
not
EB
even
Games.
It was crazy.
It was EB
Games.
Games.
EB Games.
Sponsored by EB Games.
Right.
The premise they were doing filming for the countdown at the Harley Davidson
right,
factory,
yeah. She was leaning on a motorcycle.
Store. She has fake tattoos on. She's doing this countdown of the top 10 bad girls.
Which bad is meant to, is the... I don't think people say things are like in the Power Glove, it's so bad anymore.
But it's like...
like bad girls, like they'll put you in your place, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Who was on
almost
that?
like a dominatrix
Jill
in a way.
Jill Valentine.
Samus Aran, Lara Croft. The
lesbian from Fear Effect.
Yes.
She's a lesbian, and that's all anyone knows about her.
That's all anyone knows about that game, unfortunately.
One of the female protagonists from Final Fantasy VII.
10.
10.
Because
it wasn't 10.
Not 7. Yeah,
they didn't pick Tifa. They didn't pick Aerith.
Yeah.
They picked Lulu. They didn't even pick Yuna or Riku from the ones that were in Final Fantasy X-2. They picked Lulu because she's a goth.
I'm trying to think of...
What, who was the number one?
Yeah.
Samus.
Samus was number one?
No, Jill.
Jill was...
Because one part
lower.
of Filter that we have to mention is that when they get to the 1 and 2 spot, they do a Filter face-off where people talk about who should be number one, and I think it was Jill.
No, it was Chun-Li. It was between Chun-Li and Samus.
It was Chun-Li. Jill was...
Ivy was on there, I think, as well.
Ivy
right?
was on there?
Yeah. Ivy and Jill were both
You're
on the
right.
list.
It was between Samus and Chun-Li.
Chun-Li.
Yep.
And all the Samus talk was, I played Metroid 1, and then when her armor burst off at the end and it was Lady, I was like, whoa.
Dude,
and then Chun-Li was like, she's a cop and she can crush my head with her thighs. Hell yeah.
The interviewees included, my favorite was the guy who was clearly a professional in the industry, and when they were trying to goad him into saying, like, Chun-Li thick, he was just like, Chun-Li has respectable qualities that would make her a great martial artist.
Yeah.
and the British guy, he was so good at maneuvering it. And then they had the dude from EB Games who were just like, they must have found that guy, and they're just like, this is it. This is our fucking bottomless well of interviewees for this show, because he said anything they wanted.
Let's just sign this release. And
he's just like, Jill's got everything. She's strong, she's a cop, but then like she knows when to be scared. Like I wouldn't mind her arresting me.
It was shit like that. Was Blood Rain on there?
No, Blood Rain would have made a lot more sense because they used the word dominatrix like 12 times, and I was like, where the hell's Blood Rain?
That super lanky dude who was just talking about dominatrix and getting beat up by women in every single one.
Dude, that tall lady from Resident Evil Village is gonna blow his fucking mind.
Dude, it already has.
Chris, I just gotta correct you on one part though, is that they did have one female representative that they interviewed in the whole thing, and it was some other random shopper at an EB Games, and it was always like, no, look, we're not sexist because we're asking her her opinion as well.
They were asking her about the clothing all the time. She was like,
that's true.
Like, why?
Sorry,
it was Watch Mojo, the channel, except just
I will say
to a million.
So after we watched that, Randy went on his tirade about. He's like, "You guys made me pick the worst episode of the show. It's a lot better than that." So I went back and I watched another episode, which was top 10 comic book video games.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which was better in the fact that it aged very poorly in a much different way.
Well, sure.
Because this is, keep in mind, top 10 comic book games before Marvel vs. Capcom 3 existed, before the Arkham games existed, before the new Spider-Man games existed.
Yeah.
So I think
or X-Men or Wolverine Uncaged edition.
Yeah,
existed.
I think number 1 might have been the X-Men arcade game, and number 2 was Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. Okay.
But they had like the Batman Begins video game that EA made.
Oh,
which was terrible.
That's awful.
Yeah, but at the time, it probably was one of the 10 best comic book games.
When was Arkham Asylum? 2009.
Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games. But they had like interstitials, and those were so good. If they had like cell phone reviews, it was like Tech TV brings you cell phone reviews, and it was like this dude reviewing like a Palm Pilot, and he's like, "You can do anything. Check your email, even browse the web," and it's like this pixelated screen that just says like eBay on it. It was and then they did like the top three web. I think I sent you guys this in the Discord. It was like the top 3 websites on the internet as of this episode.
Oh yeah.
And it was Homestar Runner, RedVersusBlue.com, and then RuneScape.com was number 1.
If you can see my face right now,
Yeah.
I was convinced it'd be Ask Jeeves.
See, what did I tell you? Dignified.
Yeah. Certainly.
No mini clip?
Yeah, miniclips.com. Newgrounds. Then there's Game On, which I think I only ever saw parts of. It was a travel game show where hosts Randy Kagan and Matt Gallant would invite people right off the street to compete against each other in selected video games. The pair would then choose a side and bet on who they thought was going to win, while the person who later lost would have to perform a public humiliation.
And those two guys went on to form Salty Bet. No, that's not accurate.
That's kind of like a more wholesome guy game. Which, it sounded fun. I wish we could have found it, but episodes of this thing appear to not exist online anywhere. Not even just clips, though the name doesn't help, I will say. Like, Game On is a kind of generic, like...
SEO wasn't on anybody's mind back then.
Exactly. It's talk show time now with the simply titled G4.com. It was first run by Tina Wood and...
That's G4TV.com?
G4TV.com, sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. It was run by Tina Wood, a pseudo alumni Laura Foy, and Scott Rubin. Scott being in charge of that All Games network previously. Here they would sit down and discuss a topic every week about something happening in the gaming community. Just like us. Yeah. Not like us, though, at least not yet. They would get to bring in representatives from the industry into their studio to talk to. Although the most notable element of the program was that it was interactive, with the channel's official forums being incorporated into a live chat system. They'd read posts, take calls, run polls, things like that. The episode we watched was a little later in its run, during the launch of the Xbox 360. We saw young Jeff Keighley hanging out. It also happened to be one where everybody wouldn't stop talking about sequels and the lack of new franchises, which is especially hilarious when looking back on it through the lens of today.
To our audience, by the way, you say talk show.
Yeah.
But I don't think that does it justice, because it's not a talk show. It's not like Conan or...
Yeah, sorry, not a late night talk show.
It's a panel.
It's a panel show like CNN.
Yeah.
Like fucking,
I was going to say like a radio show.
Like fucking Crossfire, dude. It's fucking weird. It's like watching like a CNN thing where they're like, we brought on a Democrat and we brought on a Republican, let's talk about gun control. But instead, they're like, I like sequels, and the other person's like, I don't. And then they're like, let's talk about the Xbox. It's weird.
It was weird, but I like it.
Was that the one where we saw that they were talking about... oh, wait, no, never mind. I'm jumping ahead to a different show. I almost confused it with Pulse coming up. We'll talk about that later.
Yes, Pulse is coming up.
This is the one where they had the interview with the guy that made Genji, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they showed gameplay of Genji, yeah.
Everyone's favorite Sony
and he was
franchise.
like, Onimusha was really good. Why does this look like shit? And it's like, I don't know.
So Icons was rad. This was a documentary-style show that covered significant figureheads in games, as well as other dives into companies, products, characters, history, and industry milestones. This actually would be the one that likely resembles what we do the closest.
Yeah, I was going to say Hot Button, the TV show, with less or more dick jokes, depending on which episode you watch.
Yeah.
We should try and find more of these sometime to,
and steal them.
to check out. No.
they're very easy to find because there's just a giant G4 TV Icons channel. Yeah.
Which is good. I know they did episodes on Devs and Stories that we have covered before, though.
What did we watch?
And those episodes are now outdated, which is the funny part, too, because it's the history of Valve, but it's like, fortunately, they're never going to take 6 years to make a new game ever again. Here's Half-Life 2. It's out now. They fixed their whole development process. Like stuff like that. Or like, man, everyone on the planet is trying to play Doom 3 right now. And you're like, yeah, of course. Like, this will be the best Doom yet.
So some are probably a bit more timeless. Like they did an ESRB one. There's a Shigeru Miyamoto one.
Which one did we watch?
So I was going to ask who wanted to talk about this.
I don't remember which Icons we watched. It was one of the early ones.
This is how we started off our marathon.
Yeah.
It was the history of fighting games.
Yep.
Right, that was great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was really cool. Like they like.
All right, Andrew, you want to take this one? Do you remember it enough?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I know a lot of history of fighting games, but I don't remember 100% exactly what they covered and which parts I'd be filling in with just other things that I know.
Do you remember how current they went?
They definitely covered Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat for sure. I guarantee you. Yeah.
They went up to
and I think they got into
Soul Calibur and Dead or Alive.
Into
was
the 3D.
Like where it ended. Because
did they make a comment about how 3D fighting games were like the
they were like fuck Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat,
totally.
Here's Tekken.
And because Mortal Kombat went 3D at that point, Street Fighter had Street Fighter EX coming around those times, and there wouldn't be a fourth Street Fighter for years after that, that went back to 2D. That was where everything was headed back then. It was just frozen at this moment in time where everybody was like, why would we do a 2D fighter?
They did like Karate Champs.
That was, I think that it might have been
Yeri Kung Fu, and then Street Fighter 1, and then Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat.
Virtua Fighter,
and then they talked about Tekken, and then they talked about Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 3, and then they started talking about Soul Calibur and Dead or Alive, and then I think it kind of ended where they're like, "Yep, 3D fighting games are here to stay, everybody."
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
They're not 100% wrong. It's just kind of just Soul Calibur and Tekken at this point. Dead or Alive, who knows what's going to happen with that series? Oh wait, no, I take that back. Virtua Fighter's coming back in some capacity.
Was that confirmed or was that just a rumor?
No, it's not a rumor. They're putting out like Virtua Fighter 5 again, but like made esports viable or something.
Oh, right. They did that with Puyo Puyo. It's like esports edition or something.
Right. It's like not fully fleshed out exactly what they're going to do, but it's going to be Virtua Fighter 5 in some way.
Right.
Which of course is by this point is like a pretty old fighting game, but
go back to that old graphical style. That
you can play Virtua Fighter 5 in Yakuza Like a Dragon.
That's correct.
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They still have Afterburner in there. Awesome. Here's another popular one, Judgment Day. It hosted reviews by another duo with Victor Lucas and veteran composer Tommy Tallarico. Both these guys were by no means strangers to the field, as Lucas was the creator of Electric Playground back in the mid-90s, a show we also watched an ep of.
Yeah.
So they reviewed tech gear, movies, comics, and software. In fact, Judgment Day is more or less a spin-off of a segment within Electric Playground called Reviews on the Run that Tommy was a part of with Lucas. Execs from G4 were fond of the format and picked it up so they could expand it into a full 30 minutes. Now, and Reviews on the Run might have come back also after Judgment Day was canceled. Yeah. So does anybody remember what was scored on the episode we watched? It was interesting going back to it and seeing how much kind of quicker it was in terms of like an X-Play with just how many things they could cover in
Yeah, was it like a
In
licensed
22
racing game, like a Rugrats racer or something? Wasn't there something like that? Oh,
No,
no,
that
Toy
was-
Story Racers.
That was reviews on the Run, wasn't it?
Oh,
That
my
might have been
bad.
the one we saw within Electric
the reviews on the Run we saw was all kart racers.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. Judgment Day was the one where the face-off that they had was between a CSI game and a Law and Order game.
Yeah, that's
Law and
pretty
Order.
funny, actually. Because they reviewed PsyOps.
Yep.
yeah.
We saw that.
We watched a small clip where they reviewed Vin Diesel in Triple X.
No, it was Riddick.
Chronicles of Riddick. You're right.
And then Driver 3,
Yep.
I think.
Driver 3.
Yeah, it was.
And then they also reviewed
They reviewed
they
some
reviewed a
hardware?
Game Boy Advance SP that looked like the
the NES one.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the plot being that these guys are like, they fight about everything, so you get like two contrasting opinions about.
Yeah, you get. They talk about the game a while. One of them says, "I like this," and then the other guy goes, "Well, I don't really like that so much." And then you get a pros and a cons list, and then 2 review scores.
And the pro and the con are always, it's too dark.
Too dark. It's too
Yeah.
dark.
That's right.
That was the funniest. In Chronicles of Riddick, they're like, the lighting in this game is beautiful, but it's way too dark. And I was like, well, that's kind of lighting, right? Like, I feel like those are kind of contradictory pros and cons, but sure, you do whatever you got to do.
No, that was a cool show, though. So this next one is a little strange. Did any of you ever watch Portal? We totally missed this one in our viewings.
Yeah, it's a really good game.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing. Yeah. Then
like
they made a sequel that was even better.
There's a cake, but like it's a lie. The whole thing.
So it says it was a comedy drama series about MMOs hosted by Dave Meinstein that used machinima and voice actors to make skits and tell stories.
This actually
Can we
does
watch
sound
this?
vaguely familiar.
Can we watch this after?
We can. I never saw it, but I do find it like
It sounds like what's the Felicia Day show?
the Guild?
The Guild.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Guild.
Did the Guild do stuff within the game?
Sometimes.
I always thought it was outside of it. So, well, the funny thing about this is that they technically beat Red versus Blue to the trend a whole year early. No clue if that played an influence on that or not, but
Well, I know, we'll get to X-Play later, but I know post Red versus Blue, X-Play had a Chaos Theory co-op machinima thing that they would do.
yes.
From
Oh,
time to
those
time.
because one of the episodes we watched, the Game of the Year X-Play ones, was the two of them in character talking about
Oh,
the games of that year. Yeah. I forget what their names were, but
Special Agent Bob and Secret Agent Steve or something like that. I'm really close.
those are good.
I'm glad you remember.
Yeah.
All right, now I know we didn't manage to find a full one of these either as well, but players with a dollar sign.
Hell yeah, dude. 30 Seconds to Mars really likes Hitman. That's my review.
It essentially
But
was...
Jared Leto does not like video games.
He does not like me.
He wasn't even there. He's just like...
No, and they were very broy and kept making fun of each other for having to put on makeup to go on live television. Yeah.
So if you haven't already guessed, it essentially was a show where, like, I guess you would meet up and talk with famous celebrities who were known to play games. Supposedly Alec Baldwin was on it, Robin Williams, which makes sense, Vin Diesel, of course,
Was
David
Ozzy
Arquette,
ever on
and
it?
the Bare Naked Ladies.
Was Ozzy Osbourne ever on it?
Potentially, yeah. I haven't actually been able to locate like a list. Like I found like episode numbers, but it doesn't say who they are because the segment that we watched, the 30 Seconds to Mars one, was like 6 minutes, so it wasn't a whole episode.
Oh boy, was it a 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Man, every bit
Very
of that.
long 6 minutes.
They really packed that 6 minutes full of just entertainment, man. Jared Leto showed up. He said his name was Lucifer, and then he disappeared, and then reappeared at the end.
And it was just two of the other lesser-known guys from the bands, just like saying nothing.
Yeah, they're just like wrestling, and then he's like, "Ha, idiot! You got to put makeup on." And then they go to play Hitman 2, and they can't skip the cutscene. And he's like, "Fuck you, IO Interactive! I got to be on TV in 5 minutes. I want to kill somebody." What a show!
It's just great. Oh man, yeah. I got to do a the torrent of just the rest of them.
Don't do that to yourself.
See if they're all truly as cringy.
No, I'm in.
Now we got Pulse. This was out there fairly easily. It was basically a pre-recorded weekly news show about what was going down in the world of video. The anchors were Patrick Clark and Ronnie Lynn Riley, and they would kind of recap all the top stories in a single handy place to catch up on what was reported. Announcements, cancellations, closures, launches,
right.
Things like that. And the one we found was wild. I gotta say, like, they really do just blaze through a ton of shit in one one episode.
It looks like the local news.
It is. It absolutely is local, and that setting is a bit strange in retrospect. But yeah, like literally, like hands folded on the desk, and
this
just
week in Xbox news, the Project Xenon has purportly been started and will be revealed soon, and it's like.
It's so professional.
Contrast that with every outlet does like weekly news, like IGN has the Daily Fix and stuff like that.
They're very personality driven, and
it's just like
up high energy.
It's like jokes and very high energy, and this is just like. And this week, it's like you expect them to be like, 13 is coming out soon. Also, Syria has entered into a war with Russia. Like, you just like expect like that fucking cadence.
Guys, correct me if I'm wrong though. Wasn't this the most of an era episode of Pulse that we could have possibly seen?
Oh my god!
And again, correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but I believe that the things that they mentioned in the news were the Phantom console, the announcement of Shenmue 3. And Half-Life 2 coming out soon. Yeah. We're all just like back to back.
This was the one
because they were saying that Half-Life 2 was coming exclusively to Steam.
Yeah, this was the one where they're like, Valve is launching their Steam platform. And we're like,
we all just bursted out laughing.
And also equally successful platform for PC games, the Phantom.
Yes, the most just apt name for a console ever. But I
disappeared from existence.
Didn't they also say that? They were talking about a cameo as being like it was a
GameCube
game.
Yeah. Well, that was Electric Playground, I think, right?
Was it?
It was an E3 episode of Electric Playground. Yeah.
But this was definitely the most like professional and highbrow. You know what I mean? Like very quiet and dignified, which seems to could have counter their. Philosophy of but it I don't know, it totally did
not really though.
It made sense. I mean,
if you're going for that MTV style, like
they did stuff like this too. That's a good point.
But like I don't know, are you done with the lineup or are there more shows to go
There's only a couple more.
It wasn't like Players is the most MTV wacky off the wall idea. The rest of it's pretty different. Like it's not crazy yet.
Yeah.
I would describe it as like almost a breath of fresh air and
almost like calm down.
Almost like okay, we get celebrities to play games, they're fucking crazy. We find people to play against each other in arena shooters like with wild names. Yeah. But then it's like, like hard video game journalism, let's treat it with professionalism. So it's
you're right.
It would have made more of a mockery to like have some wild or wacky antic go on in the background.
Yeah.
While they're trying to relay the news, which under like
it was just funny because it was like I feel like I may have been a little bit bored by this when I was younger, but while going back to now, I was like, actually, I would like if this was a show now, I was like, I'd like this because it
a weird level of respect for the audience that they're
exactly
trying to cater to.
It was not handholdy at all.
Yeah.
It was like
and it was not like looking back. At the end of G4, which I'm sure you'll get to, and what X-Play eventually sort of morphed into, and what Attack of the Show became, and what their original programming looked like after they realized that video games was after the dawn of the internet.
I feel like this was maybe also the program you would show to higher ups to try and make them understand the industry more.
Yes.
So this is funny. Next on the list is Sweat. Something I know I didn't watch as it was strictly devoted to sports titles. Not a lot for me to recount here. I'm sorry. We honestly
Except that the show sucked.
We didn't even finish the episode we chose.
It was wild that they put a 3-hour show on cable television.
I was like, if anyone wants to elaborate on...
It was 22 minutes. It just felt like 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was backstage at like a WWE event, right?
Yep.
Was it WrestleMania? I think it was WrestleMania.
It was WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It was a cross between. They were trying to interview both the people who are obviously incorporated into the game, so sports figures and WWE wrestlers.
Yeah.
It was like the behind the scenes to like the promotional activity. So it was like the wrestlers who were going to be wrestling WrestleMania showed up to do a press conference and meet the fans. And also they had the WrestleMania game there where like people who clearly don't play video games were like, aka the wrestlers had to like demo it and promote it.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a mess.
Yeah. It was a little unfocused.
We skipped through a lot of this.
Yeah.
I don't think we watched the whole thing. Or no, we were going to stop, and then Andrew was like, wait, get to the end and see if it gets good. And then it didn't.
And last but not least, out of our premiere batch was Starcade, a more obscure one again, I feel, for younger people, considering it was just reruns of an old 80s arcade show. That wasn't Nick Arcade. So I guess not totally original with this in there, which is why it wasn't on our list last week, but I digress.
We should watch it.
See, they did have to fill every open slot since the channel ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This led to loads and loads of reruns for the folks that weren't able to tune in before. Also, there were obviously plenty of noteworthy omissions from this lineup. I already know what you're thinking, but don't worry, those will come later. I wouldn't forget the key programs, nor the staff changes of the stuff I already mentioned. Of these, though, just real quick, what do you guys think was the best in the mindset of 2021?
Oh, God, Cinematech. I love Cinematech, but
I was going to say no, my answer
excluding Cinematech.
Excluding
because
Cinematech?
it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, of the hosted shows,
I might have seen
Judgment Day?
Yeah,
Judgment
Day.
I'd probably also go Judgment Day because like I liked X-Play a lot, but there was a period where X-Play got bad, you know, and like Judgment Day didn't have that period. The highs weren't as high, but the lows weren't as low.
Yeah, that's fair.
I like the serious-esque news one.
Yeah, Pulse is absolutely up there for me.
Yeah,
as well.
That's excluding Cinematech and by proxy, Nocturnal Emissions.
God damn it.
Then yeah.
I mean, of course,
it's a given.
Yeah, but I mean, they were all pretty good. Like you looking back, it's hard to judge, but like that's my judgment, pun intended, is Judgment Day. But like at the time, though, like we made a lot of fun of like Blister. But fuck, dude, I ate Blister up when it was on the air.
Yeah, me too.
I do love me some Arena. I don't think it's a good show, but it's so funny.
I know it is primed for just jokes and watching.
And like Filter in a pre-Watch Mojo YouTube era, Filter was
addicting.
Was cool.
Yeah.
You know what's weird? A lot of the shows nowadays, like, they're like these standout shows on networks, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like you have like your primetime slot and stuff like that, and then you have like your filler. And G4 felt like almost all filler. Like in
all
the sense
filler, no
in the sense that like I could put together a 300-hour back-to-back episodes of G4, like their programming, and just put it on loop. And like that could be like what's on my TV at my house.
Exactly.
Right.
Same
but
here.
it works.
It all works well together. Like
because
it's
like I don't think the video game.
Different, like,
I don't think the video game audience are the people who sit down at 7 p.m. to watch primetime television.
Yeah, I agree.
So it was just kind of this thing of like, yeah, there was never a time where you were just like, oh shit, time to turn on G4. This is on
every time.
But at the same time, you're like, let's turn on G4, and there's always something.
That's kind of exactly how I consumed it.
Yeah.
So, but things definitely.
Unless Legends of the Hidden Temple's on gas.
So things definitely seemed as if they were off to a promising start so far. Early viewers responded positively. It was nice seeing such an embrace of the lifestyle taken to a larger degree. And sure, it was rather campy, but at the time, though, it did feel sincere. Having knowledgeable and passionate talent was a huge help in making each project appear very identifiable.
It never felt like the hosts didn't know what they were talking about.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Or that they didn't want to be there.
Unless you're watching Sweat.
Yes.
Because no one wanted to be there. It felt like absolutely no one wanted to be on Sweat.
Yeah, it felt like nobody was in control, like with Sweat.
Yeah.
So much of this was also reflected in their site's official message boards, and the community there was active, especially since many of the show's hosts would often visit them to interact with fans. Some even went as far as giving out their personal gamer tags after Xbox Live formally launched that upcoming November. They'd set up gaming sessions and chat, a connection rarely seen from industry workers prior. Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Mechasoul, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six 3. Fuck yeah. Nights on those became common amongst the scene. It was pretty dope. Less dope, however, was G4's limited reach. Only 15 million homes were receiving their broadcasts at all out the gate. It wasn't available to me. In 2002.
Not me neither at the time.
If I didn't say it earlier, I had to go over to a friend's house to watch the shit for a while. It took a bit for it to become optional in our cable package.
I mean, like, think about it too. Is that it's like you knew someone maybe who had the digital cable package before you did, and you're like, oh man, they got G4, and like, who wants to watch it? Like us in middle school, but like we don't pay the cable bill, so like we're not going to be able to like go out and get ourselves upgraded, and it would be a hard sell. Like, you know what I mean? Like eventually we did upgrade, but it's like I'm not in control to get the thing that I want, you know, the product that would interest me. So
we've done some market research, and it turns out that our audience isn't in charge of their
it isn't in charge of their cable bill.
Yeah.
Our audience is also part of the poorest demographic. People aged 12 to 18.
I saw some early G4. I had a friend who had a mythical black box in his house. Ooh. Use some black magic to maybe, I don't know, get all the channels.
Whoa. So I'm pretty sure my dad had one, but he didn't tell me about it until after I graduated from college.
Wait, what did he think you were gonna do?
Watch Skinemax, of course.
The answer to what did he think I was going to do was watch like R-rated movies on HBO, which like he had.
Which
in his
you
bedroom.
totally would
like,
have. Yeah.
I totally would have. Yeah, so
exactly.
he had it wired right to his bedroom. Didn't tell me about it until years later, like years and years later.
That's great. Was that cable just like tucked into the carpet? Like
you were gonna rat him out to the cops,
no, running through the ceiling probably.
Okay.
Through the attic.
Just painted over.
Dude, that's some dad energy right there.
That is some dad energy.
Steal cable, but don't steal it for the whole house, just for you. That's great.
But yeah, this made it real tough to attract advertisers. On the positive side, though, it did result in us getting some fun, like Adult Swim style bumpers, and that are clips of game record holders and celebrity cameos. Except those profits still needed to be hit. That's when Hirshhorn hatched the clever plan to let publishers promote their releases a la the quote 2-minute unit. Right in the middle of certain programs like G4TV.com or Pulse, and then disguising it as part of the show. It wasn't outlandish or even overly manipulative, since it was what enthusiasts were often coming to check out anyway. It was better than the alternative of ads that had nothing to do with games, although I did find some like movie trailers in there and stuff. But of course,
for a Tomb Raider in the womb of
something like that. In the Cradle of Life.
The Cradle of Life was the second one.
Thank you. That's what I meant.
It was every show
Cradle
we watched.
of Life womb. You see where I made the connection. Shut up.
So,
definitely not Cradle to the Grave.
No, not the Jet Li.
I said that.
Movie.
Yeah.
Almost every show we watch, we're like, oh, this will be a great one to check out. And they were all from 2003 promoting that movie.
Yeah, that was all over.
Tomb Raider, and the Cradle of Life, and then the game Angel of Darkness, and then also 13.
So I have a
and
question.
Rainbow Six 3.
Okay, so Comcast
13.
owned the channel, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other major broadcast channels that Comcast owned, or did they just provide cable to people?
Comcast also owns the Flyers.
No.
And the Sixers.
Oh.
At the time, yeah.
So
Comcast Sports,
which I'm sure affected broadcasting.
Yeah.
How come Comcast just didn't include the channel that they owned into the base cable subscription?
I don't know, dude.
They wanted to pay more money.
Yeah,
but G4 G4 is a channel.
No, you're 100% right. They own it. That would have been
Yeah.
yeah.
Alternatively, when you have these channels that are very niche markets, right? The best way that we've seen so far to have them get mainstream appeal is not to put it in channel 300 and have people pay extra for it. It is to latch on to a dead time slot from another channel and create a section for it like Adult Swim did on Cartoon Network or Nick at Night did for Nickelodeon.
I mean, the whole thing was like, you have network television, which Comcast legally has to provide.
Yes.
NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS.
The old rabbit ears.
Yeah, and then you have cable, which is like your AMCs, your Comedy Centrals, your Nickelodeons, your Cartoon Networks.
Yep.
Those companies pay Comcast to be on basic cable. And then I think, like Andrew said, it was to make more money. Like G4 didn't exist. They didn't really care so much about how many people were watching it. It was more like building up a library of stuff to sell people on additional cable packages, because I can tell you the reason I got G4 in my house was because my mom wanted to watch the Food Network, which was also a part.
Wow, the Food Network was like a premium channel?
I think so, yeah.
Huh.
I bet you something like that entirely golf channel also fits into that thing, right? Like
yeah.
it's a niche thing
also,
that it's like, chances are you fall into one of these buckets.
HDTV, Lifetime, Hallmark, all those channels that my mom wanted to watch. And then she was like, I was like, little did you know.
Trojan horse.
You may be watching your romance movies, but I got TV for gamers, Mom. And life is never going to be the same.
Take that, Emerald. Bam! No, like, it seems like there is almost, like, it was such a good premise, and they could have reached so many more people if they just thought about how to distribute it to their consumers in a correct way.
Yeah. That's going to be a running theme for a bit of this.
Like,
all right, so hear me out. Here's a way to distribute it. What if everybody could just go on their computers where they already play video games, and then they could just open up a tab and watch it? Huh?
Well, we're talking about 2002.
Yeah, that wasn't possible.
You wouldn't really have the ability to do that in any good definition until 2009, 2010.
No, you're 100% right, but like that's I was just saying that's the modern way to distribute.
Yeah, that is the modern
exactly
way to distribute it. But there had to be a better way that they could have done it, especially because they own so many different channels, and they get to choose like what package they want to provide this in, because like you had your base cable package, channels 1 through 6, you could get those are like guaranteed. Then you had the extended package, and that's what we had growing up, which was like Cartoon Network was channel 77,
for me too.
Nickelodeon was 44 or something.
Oh my god,
something like that.
I remember that.
And then after that you had the bonus channels. And then there was like an add-on that included G4, like
past Comedy Central.
Yes,
and all the other stuff.
because like I thought I was going to get G4 growing up, but we didn't. We got the extended one.
Yeah.
And then after that was like the add-on. Including G4 and Food Network.
And beyond that are all your movie like HBO and Stars.
You watch Nickelodeon forever, and then your mom goes, "All right, we upgraded the cable package," and you go, "Fuck, dude. Here's Nick Jr., Nick 2, Nick Games and Sports. I never have to watch another non-Nickelodeon project ever again."
Now you're talking.
But if they wanted it to be its
Boomerang.
own entity, stop treating it as like a second thought and treat it as like one of your actual channels. But then again, they tried to go for like the MTV look, but MTV was treated like its own property and was included in like those basic cable or those original cable things.
It's
so
funny,
like,
by this time there was already an MTV 2 and 3, I believe.
Yeah.
So.
And those were in the extended slots where G4 was.
Yeah.
Wait, MTV2 is where the music's at, right?
Well, it was, and then that got. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, they better just spin up another MTV.
That's actually that's what they did.
Yeah, and then VH2. That didn't happen.
I thought that was real. And I didn't know about it.
I think it's just a matter of like in the early days of like when you're talking about like channel 77.
Yeah.
Before digital cable, it was like they didn't have the bandwidth to air everything, and it's like, why air our own stuff when we're getting paid to air other people's stuff? There wasn't enough room.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I guess if other people are paying you, then and there's people waiting out the door to get their channel in on your basic cable package, then yeah, you wouldn't put your own product out there.
Right, because I can tell you that, like, as a Flyers fan, like, Comcast Sportsnet was a basic cable channel.
Yeah.
Right next to ESPN.
Yeah.
Because it's
they
one thing
to watch their thing instead of ESPN.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like, hey, we're going to put TV for gamers on instead of having, like, Comedy Central or Spike TV pay us. But it's another thing to be like, we own the 76ers and the Flyers, and a lot of people in Philadelphia really want to watch those two teams.
Yep.
So we made a channel for that, and of course that's going to go in the basic cable because
it's sports.
there's a difference between asking people to pay for TV for gamers and asking people to pay to watch their favorite sports team, you know?
Yes. So their first major sponsorship with Pringles.
Yeah, we saw that a bunch.
Would come next, rebranding the show Cheat as Pringles Gamer's Guide, which was something that was reflected in the episode we watched, correct?
I want to eat some Pringles live on the air.
Yo, by the way, this advertising campaign was so effective that over a decade later, as we go to rewatch these shows, Randy was already eating Pringles.
I was eating Pringles.
That's how good it was.
Oh my god. I forgot. But it was a new flavor.
See, advertising works.
But you know, this like ventureship, like or joint, it was whatever, because most of the other companies joining in after Pringles were much more appropriate, such as EB Games and Namco Bandai. Like, you would start to see little interstitials of, hey, like, you know, Ubisoft has this coming out and stuff like that, and they were paying for it. So that was like, that made sense for, you know.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of their revenue probably came from, like,
publishers and
hardware
like companies and stuff. Yeah.
We have 13 coming out. Why don't you show it on like 3 of your different programs this week? You know, really hammer it home that people need to play 13.
Hey, 13's dope.
Then you got Randy, who's like, I love this obscure game called 13, but every G4 program we watched, all of them were reviewing 13.
Hey, it was still obscure because they weren't reaching that many fucking people through this channel.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, I mean, this could just be subliminally like an effect of this was around the time when I got G4, but it seems like whenever we were like, oh no, that's an episode we have to watch, it was almost all like from 2003. So I don't know if that was just a great year or if I just have more nostalgia for when I first got that channel.
I was wondering that too, but I that just happened to be what was being archived out there on YouTube for like
that too.
But
I also don't. A lot of these shows lasted, but a lot of them didn't.
Yes, which will make sense in actually only a couple of minutes. So the cost of maintaining the channel still continued to climb. One hopeful win for them was their coverage of E3 2002 that summer, something they dedicate themselves in doing yearly this season on. And they did a good job in making their presence known at the event too. Viewers were happy to have the chance to really see the expo get shown to them in like live detail in a way that wasn't possible before. Fast forwarding some months, we do have our first instance of behind the camera drama, this being with the show Arena. In what felt to fans like it was totally out of nowhere, both Wheaton and Oates quit as hosts. This was followed up when Wheaton wrote a lengthy blog post explaining the reasoning was due to how him, Oates, and their crew were constantly mistreated by an incompetent producer, further claiming he was dodging many of his responsibilities, which then caused the content itself to suffer. When he brought new players in, they were only getting paid in pizza and be forced to wait for hours until filming. Once that word spread around those communities, competitors stopped applying to even compete. This led to the teams getting filled in by G4's own employees and interns.
Oh no, Team Minority, were they
we don't know if they were on the take or not.
I'd also love to see that contract that says payment, 1 slice of pizza, you know? Or like...
But it's like, we were talking about that watching Arena, and we're like, I wonder if we would recognize any of these people who went on to compete in, like, esports moving beyond it. And it's like, well...
Definitely not.
No, because they weren't finding those at the top of those ladders anyway, because...
Yeah, I can...
There was not enough incentive. Like,
I could totally see what they were trying to do with Arena, and at the same time, why they paid people in pizza. which is if you told any 16-year-old kid that they could be on a game show to play video games for
on
bragging rights,
TV,
people are going to say yes.
Yeah.
Right? Do I think pizza is enough? No.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you need to give people a lot of money to if you want them to be on TV.
I mean, you're right, and presumably they're also like their flights are being compensated.
Well,
right?
I'm assuming this works in the same way that like if you want to be in the audience for The Price is Right is. Like the onus is on you to get there. You can come on for free. Like all you have to do is call ahead, and you will be reimbursed with this.
I think it was more just bad etiquette because it was like if you were waiting in a hot room all day, and
that is bad.
And then you finally get to play for a few minutes, and it's like kind of a shitty experience. You're just like, well, I'm not going to come back and do this. It wasn't really worth it. Like even though I can get exposure or whatever, so naturally you're going to tell your friends like, well, like hey, like everybody who's playing, whatever game, like. We'll just go play in this tournament over here and get paid potentially. Like, it's...
Oh no, they weren't going to attract any professional player to that show.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was the intention.
No, it seemed more. It was more for entertainment value than anything. But after enough altercations, the two hosts were out. So instead, they were replaced with Lee Rariman and ex-Gladiator and actor Michael Loudon. Rariman was the one on the with. Kevin in the episode that we saw, because fans didn't take to that initial swap well, and so Loudon was let go, and that's when Pereira was brought in. Mm-hmm. Pereira was a frequent forum user who previously was hired as a production assistant and writer for G4TV.com, and he also scheduled the calls with the audience. That, and he contributed to Pulse upon Ronnie Lynn Riley stepping down as one of the anchors. So things were kind of back on track again, minor hiccup, but it was fine. We're now a full year in, so that meant it was time for something fresh to shake up the roster. The most substantial addition to this in 03 was Game Makers and G4ia with a PH. The former was a really dope concept, a doc series following the process of game development right up until it ships. And, it kind of reminds me of NoClip. And then, although I never got to witness it for myself since it supposedly was aired rather infrequently, the latter was a hotly anticipated and heavily marketed award show. Remember, the Game Awards haven't existed yet, or at least they were a year out, I think, from the first Spike event.
Yeah, it was like 2004.
Yeah. Unfortunately, much of the credibility out of the gate here was pretty squandered once the categories were revealed to be mostly backed by huge advertisers that demanded to put their stupid names on everything, from the Powered by Mountain Dew Sports Award and the Stride Long Lasting Game Award.
Very different than today's Game Awards. So that might seem like a foreign concept to some listeners.
The Subway Indie Eat Fresh Award. What the fuck was it?
The Eat Fresh Award.
Yeah, yep.
Eat Fresh Indie Game Award presented
game.
by Subway.
I think I just word scrubbing it up. But...
They had the Schick mascot there.
Yes, the Schick mascot is a...
Schick Hydra Man, free your skin.
I don't want to free my skin.
I don't want to free my skin.
So it was lame, but it did finally attract the ad revenue they needed, and viewership was high. It definitely helped them coast through the early months of 04. However, it still wasn't without a few casualties along the way. Game On was the first to be canceled, likely because of budget. Although other shows were steadily increasing in popularity, it still didn't seem like it was enough for additional cable providers throughout the U.S. to want to pick up the channel. The standard for the era was a reach of around 40 million, 25 more than what they were pulling. The lack of major growth then caused Comcast to step in and land them into their biggest reform yet. When an opportunity came to purchase the aforementioned Tech TV from owner Paul Allen and Vulcan Inc., they quickly acquired it and merged it together with G4. The primary reason being that then the channel would inherit their slot on DirecTV. That way it was available for 50 to 60 million households.
Yep.
Yeah. Tech TV viewers, they were not thrilled with the new partnership, as the tones and ideas for the two networks were vastly different and adhered to separate philosophies.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the deal went through, and on May 28th of that year, G4 was now branded as G4 Tech TV.
Which we were watching, a couple of the episodes we were watching had like lower thirds that just said like
Yeah.
G4 is becoming G4 Tech TV. like next week or some shit.
Yeah, which is kind of wild to see.
And just an approximation of when Comcast digital cable packages were brought to my household, this was about exactly when I got the channel. Like,
yeah,
I think either right before, during, or immediately after this transition.
I think me too.
There were a lot of reruns.
Yep. Which makes sense if now it was out there in a much more grander sense. The merger did save our topic from bankruptcy. Well, for now anyway. Tech's headquarters in San Francisco was then closed, which did cost many employees there their jobs. The ones that did remain were relocated to the LA studio, where they would basically help them come to fruition, as well as transition over of their largest hit, the Screensavers. A computer-focused talk show that demoed tech products that soon was then revamped into a variety program centered around internet and gaming-oriented pop culture. While a couple staff members of the cast did stay, the others, along with its entire staff, and executive producer Paul Block, resigned. In conjunction to this, G4 also had the rights to air older shows from Tech TV's past lineup in order to pad their, slots out a bit.
Right.
There was a shortly lived series called Eye Drops that I never heard of until researching. It was like a compilation of CG animated shorts made with everyday 3D software by amateur artists. Could have been interesting. I have no idea. Future Fighting Machines, a show that documented innovations and advancements in military technology, or better known as something all our dads would probably watch endlessly. Body Hits, which apparently was dedicated to biology science and what is going on inside our skin suits. I believe it was hosted by an actual doctor. Back on theme a tad more was Fresh Gear, about personal gadgets and gizmos. Invent This, that profiled ordinary people demonstrating their inventions. It's not bad. Nerd Nation, a biographical show that followed the lives of everyday nerds and geeks.
That sounds like a stalkery kind of thing.
I'm sure it's just the worst fucking show
it's
ever.
just they go to school or work and they come back and read comics and play video games. It doesn't sound like
it's just very voyeuristic
honestly.
angle to it.
That exact transitionary period from Screensavers to Attack of the Show, when it because Screensavers was fairly dry as far as covering computer stuff and new tech stuff, but it's and when it went all the way into that dial of covering pop culture, kind of sucked. But in that intermediary period,
they had to find the balance.
Great, I thought. Yeah, exactly. And then they just lost the balance.
So wait,
well, hold on. We got two more real quick. Yeah. I just got to cover. There's Secret, Strange, and True, an hour-long docuseries on the paranormal, such as UFOs, ghosts, and time travel. Now you're talking. And Unscrewed with Martin Sargent.
Yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah, a late-night comedy talk show that featured interviews with, quote, unusual guests scooped up from around the internet. So, yeah, Andrew, you mentioned this the other night. Have you seen... I don't think I ever saw the show. I don't...
Okay, so there is one specific bit that I remember, and I remember a little bit more of it that I'm going to say, because I think this joke has aged poorly. But
okay.
It was... So... it was definitely a talk show comedian format, and I don't remember who he was interviewing. I do remember that they cut to this thing. It's and now we have our segment, Tech Around the Globe. And then they go to, the country that they highlighted was some third world country with very little tech, and that was the joke. It probably definitely does not play well these days.
No.
Yeah, they zoomed in on Flint, Michigan.
Oh boy. It was of its era, like so many of these things.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there weren't a ton of episodes of it, at least on reruns anyway. Because I definitely wasn't watching it live.
I heard of a good portion of these, but I did not watch any of them.
All right, questions for you about Tech TV. One, was it an American network or a Canadian network?
San Francisco.
So American.
Which I guess G4 was L.A. So,
yes.
Yeah, it was Ziff Davis.
Ziff Davis.
It was
okay,
ZDNet first. That's Ziff Davis.
ZDTV
They're based
was the channel.
They're based in San Francisco. The same company that owns official Xbox magazine and GameSpot and for a while and all those.
Yeah.
Was Tech TV ever offered in the Comcast lineup?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tech TV started first?
So Tech TV was it was 98, and then G4 was 02. So.
Okay. Because, like, I could totally see Comcast looking at Tech TV. Does Comcast only operate in the East Coast?
Got a Wikipedia entry for you.
Okay,
What's up?
Comcast?
Yeah.
No, Comcast is a national cable company. It's just they're headquartered here.
Yes.
They were more
Philly,
regional earlier on.
They expanded a lot more in the following years with the growth of their power.
In late
That's how they
2000,
built their USB tower.
Yeah, the obelisk that's shining over and looking over all
in
this.
late 2001 to early 2002, Comcast dropped Tech TV from channel lineups.
Wait,
At
late
the
2001, early 2002?
At the time, viewers speculated this was done to eliminate competition to a new competitor launched by Comcast named G4.
And let me guess,
Bam.
they never allowed them back in,
Nope.
thus devaluing Tech TV's like what they're worth, right? To make so that when G4
When Comcast G4 Media acquired Tech TV and merged it with G4 in 2004, a second fan theory emerged which suggested that Comcast's actual motive was to lower Tech TV's value and ultimately its asking price.
Damn.
Yep.
I'm those fans. I'm that fan. No, that's
nefarious, too. That's like
that's really
that
that's
would be
completely
like
in their warehouse.
That would
like
be
they-
like Disney trying to phase out X-Men and Fantastic Four so they could buy Fox for cheaper. I mean, like, that's
Yeah.
absolutely absurd. No one would do
Like-
that.
Yeah, the government would never allow that.
Never.
Yeah.
Like
There's
that
laws
makes
for
a
such
lot
a
of
thing.
That'd be
sense. though.
insane.
That makes a lot of sense, right? They launched G4. They're like, this is going to be in competition to Tech TV. They put up a whole bunch of different programs, obviously hoping that all of them become smash hits. But over time, as they figure out which ones aren't and they start weeding it out, they find issues with ad revenue and getting promoters. Then they say, okay, let's just buy Tech TV, incorporate their best shows, cut the chaff, and we will own the market for gaming TV.
Yeah.
yeah.
Fucking nefarious. Gigabit internet.
Yeah. That's crazy that Comcast would do something like that. They're such an upstanding company otherwise.
And so speaking of Tech TV, the list of shows that I just rattled through that I did not see much of, but which honestly neither did anyone else really, as they were all reruns and they did not play for long.
No.
But everything as per that deal, there was like that was all entirely inconsequential, as the stage was now getting set for what was soon going to be a key pillar for their whole goddamn channel, X-Play. Even though we've already brought it up a few times, but almost everybody that follows video games in this era knew of X-Play. Their reviews, skits, and awards extending far beyond just the time slot. Hosts Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb practically became the public faces of G4 in general. But not many are likely aware of its long history, of it even coming to fruition in the first place. Its earliest incarnation going back as far as 1998, when it was known as GameSpot TV. It was produced by the then recently launched site of the same name and aired on the ZD TV network under Ziff Davis, like said Austin. Sessler was still a frontrunner, along with Lauren Fielder, during the initial year, before her co-hosting duties shifted over to Kate Botello of fellow Screensavers, that crew, up until 2002. For more details on that, I highly recommend checking out the Comedy Button podcast episodes with Adam. He talks very candidly about his arrival into the field as well as his behind-the-scenes time on the channel. It's pretty good. I just re-listened to it the other day for the first time in a while. I know there was this one taping they even did in his apartment in between the buyout, which or something, which is pretty good. Anyway, even those early roots arose out of a falling out with ZD executives where actor Simon Rex, not the best filmography, don't look him up, was going to be host of a program called Extended Play, later GameStop. God damn it, GameSpot, would they would rebrand the project and change the format to something a bit more targeted to the hip gamer crowd. ZD-TV would become Tech TV, thus ending the partnership with Ziff Davis. Botello would then leave, causing Adam to host solo for a while. That was until Morgan, another Screensavers alum, joined the cast in 2004. The title swapped, and boom, X-Play was born. I believe she was also on a computer talk show, Call for Help, as well.
I've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like something my parents would watch.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm having computer troubles. Help me with it over the phone and televise it.
I want to watch episodes of that.
Me too.
It's like car talk, but for computers.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, X-Play was definitely the smash they needed right now, which I guess helped lighten some of the blow when it came to other cancellations. Blister, Portal, Pulse, Players, and even Arena were all gone in an effort to restructure. Same with Judgment Day, as the Tech TV merger gave them Electric Playground, something their business department thought was too similar. That, and with X-Play now being the hot place for reviews, JD was unfortunately out. Was cut.
Man, what a bummer there, too, because Judgment Day could cover so many more reviews, and, like, X-Play was, like, reviews plus skits. You know? So, like, I can see how they thought that they were double dipping on that, but, like, also, you want to have, like, more sources of information on reviews just in case that reviewer doesn't jive with your preferences.
Separate opinions, yeah. Like,
yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
The field was very limited in terms of when they first started out, G4 had so much they had to cover. It sounds like a lot of their early programming was different flavors of the same thing, in the sense of like, okay, we have reviews, then we have reviews from people with two contrasting opinions, then we have, reviews except we're drunk, then we have reviews but it's all done backwards.
They had variety.
But as they consolidate and had more options from Tech TV, they started getting rid of the bonus flavors.
Yeah.
And started putting it more towards whichever flavor was more popular.
Mm-hmm.
What is you talked about when Tech TV merged with G4? Tech TV listeners were very upset, right?
Yeah.
What was the tonal shift, or the tonal shift that would have happened after the merger? Like, what was Tech TV beforehand that their fan base would have been upset, but if they switched over with G4, how did they contrast?
Well, Tech TV's crowd was probably skewed like a little older,
okay.
and their shows weren't. The energy level was certainly different.
Okay.
Because it's like...
Was it a more serious vibe?
Yeah, I would say so. And as Andrew said, a little bit drier, a little more direct and to the point.
Okay.
And G-Force was a bit more... I don't want to say wacky, but like they wanted...
MTV crowd.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was like... It's like guessing the difference between riding a bike and riding a skateboard. There's just kind of this like aesthetic like...
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. I would be into Tech TV now, but G4, we were in middle school when we got it, and we were exactly where we were supposed to be as far as the demographics that were targeting at the time. So
that is a good way of putting it.
That makes sense.
I disagree.
I mean, you want a little bit of entertainment in
I've
there,
been way more into G4 now, but not for the reasons they intend.
How many levels of irony are we cutting through?
A lot. It's like a 7-layer cake.
So around here was when the channel's slogan changed too. TV for gamers turned into Stay Connected, a phrase more tied to a broader techie online feel. This also went double for G4's overall mission, this being most apparent with Filter. Those fun top 10 video game lists were now geared towards movies, TV, and music. And among other things, yeah. I know. And things were all falling apart pretty fast. That's when the channel's largest advertiser, Pringles, then bounced. They ducked out. Although this did lead to...
So once you pop, you can stop. Right, guys?
Anyway. Once you pop, the fun don't stop until you find something better.
Yeah, once you pop, the fun don't stop until a corporate merger forces you out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that how that goes?
Yeah, that's the Pringles full slogan.
Cheat did return as Cheat again.
Thank God.
Yeah, not for much longer. But
the one show they needed to save. Yeah. Absolutely.
Meanwhile, though, X-Play was continuing to grow in viewership. This was good. Of course, the network was still going to need more than just that single win. Before I go further, though, since we haven't gotten deep into it yet, what was your guys' experience with watching X-Play? Oh,
I liked it.
Yeah, I think we selected a kind of a batch of random episodes from them like a month or 2 months ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Game of the Year stuff and award specials, but
I watched X-Play, but it's weird because I liked X-Play. I thought that looking in hindsight, like what they were doing, they were definitely very talented individuals, right? But I didn't exactly watch X Play for like the purpose of video games. I just thought it was a good show.
It was just entertaining.
It was just entertaining.
Yeah.
Like,
I get you. Yeah. I liked their opinions, but they were presented in a very like, like kind of jokey, sarcastic way. But like, I always I still vibed with Adam and
16-year-old atheist me really vibed with it, like.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. Is like, once again, like we were in middle school basically when we got access to G4, and that was the right age for it. So like, I can't tell how much of it is me just fondly remembering enjoying that show's sense of humor then, and how much of it still holds up. Although I will say that the clip we revisited that they mentioned on the comedy button with X3. That was still funny. Still made me laugh. That was still good. I remember
the cock attack.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are a good number of bits that I think will always hold up on that show. But I do, like when I first started watching it, they were making jokes about pre-rendered backgrounds in Resident Evil and doing a sketch based on that, or like a parody of Reservoir Dogs where some guy's talking about how he doesn't save his game instead of like not tipping, right? And,
that's
that kind of stuff. Yeah, like that kind of stuff was really funny. And then gradually as time went on, they added like Johnny Extreme, who was like a good bit the first time, and then they kept on bringing him back.
Yeah, they did that with
like
a few of their characters.
And like Ratty, and like as they kept on going on with like more and more of these things that they tried to turn into recurring gags, I don't think many of them worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it not like how they treated their interns as subhuman, like that kind of stuff was funny. But as they tried to add more of that kind of joke, like their interns being like prisoners or whatever, stuff like Ratty, it just kind of stopped hitting.
What do you think, Austin?
It's. They're not the funny thing that hit me when we watched the cock attack bit is that it's also a good review. If you read past the very, very subtle comedy of the bit, it's also a good review for that game.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the writers on that show did a very good job of writing the reviews that were entertaining but also informative.
Yeah. And
then otherwise, I agree with Andrew. The sketches, some of them were good, most of them weren't great.
The average changed as we got older and the show went along,
but I like Adam Sessler a lot. I like Morgan Webb a lot. They're great hosts. Like Chris said, they're very entertaining, but they're also informative.
Yes, and there was nothing kind of quite like it at the time.
I liked it. I liked having both that and Judgment Day, like you guys said.
Yes.
But that was short-lived.
Yeah.
Because Judgment Day was all those two guys, and it was like it didn't have writers, you know. It was just like, I mean, I'm sure it did, but it's just them talking about the game.
No, it was very off the cuff and casual, just like
and then X Play was very produced, but it was produced well.
It was produced well.
Yeah, that's the way I put it. Like there's like a prompter in that, as opposed to Judgment Day, where they're like just kind of rattling off. So onto the screensavers a bit more, seeing as it's already come up several times now. As I mentioned, this one was more PC gear focused. There were interviews, calls from viewers, and often helped answer tech-related questions that viewers might have had. Of course, this was prior to the G4 days where, of course, it would transition to being more about nerdy culture. Sorry, I already stated that. But like all these changes in vision were very obvious. Not just in front of the camera, but behind it as well, with more and more of the original Tech TV staff getting laid off. This rightfully upset a lot of older hardcore fans who were there since the beginning, in the 90s when you said it started, 98. Jumping ahead to February 2005, this only 10 months after the acquisition, the Tech TV tag was dropped altogether, and it reverted back to simply being G4 a second time. This applying to their Canadian branch as well. Pereira then soon took over hosting for the Screensavers, as there was no more arena, and network producers practically fired whoever was left as per those mass exodus, the resignations. Many of the workers on it were also fairly open on personal blogs and whatnot about the shakeups in management. One employee who was terminated, Dan Hard, even admitted in the last couple, he said the last couple seasons under G4 that they were staging their phone calls. The reason being that executives, quote, didn't want geeks asking questions anymore, which, was essentially the entire point of it. And the intended target audience to begin with?
Oh man. What year was this?
2005.
Oh, that checks out with the whip set.
Yeah.
This checks out completely. When was G4 actually doing well prior to that?
I would say
was the boat afloat?
The boat was afloat. Like a lot of the shows that we liked were getting canned, and the writing was still not big on the wall, because it's like I said, like X-Play was a pretty strong win for them,
Yeah.
And it's like they were sailing the seas, but this it's not like they don't have any victories left, but it was a lot of people essentially sort of scrambling to figure things out at this point, because once the news broke about the screening of the calls, this also then happened to that G4TV.com show, where the direct forum interaction too had to be pre-screened by producers to make sure it aligned with the current brand. Host Scott
But does
Rubin,
that mean just filtering out profanity and ASCII dicks? Or...
I think it's implying a bit more than that, because that would be the easy joke. But I think it was more that they were going to handle their screenings the same way that the other one did, where it's like, if this question is too dorky or too specific, it's not. They don't. They wanted to find things a bit more broad.
This is around the time too that every major corporation tried to stick their hands in the cookie jar that was esports and gaming as well.
Yeah.
You had MLG that was broadcast on ESPN in 2006 and 2007. You had the championship gaming series, the CGS, hosted by DJ Wheat.
Yeah.
That was in 2006. So it seems like it could have been one of those situations where G4, the boat was afloat, but as other companies started looking towards video games and other avenues, Comcast or management and executives started looking at G4 more to try and pivot what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, and that's probably also the reason why you see a whole bunch of people get laid off, because they're like, we got to adapt. This is what other channels are doing. We have our own. We're not keeping up with the Joneses. All the people that are good and have a fan base, get rid of them. Bring in the shills.
So yeah, the G4TV.com. This is when host Scott Rubin left. This was shortly after they had to change up the format of their show, and then he took a gig over at Spike TV with Gamehead, and he actually relaunching All Games Productions, a company that provides consulting and assistance with services relating to the field. His replacement, though, did bring us Death Stranding character Jeff Keighley.
Oh, cool. That's where that character came from.
Yeah. A highly respected industry journalist whose later career would include contributions to E3, the now defunct Game Trailers, rest in peace, and founding of the Game Awards, which is still going strong to this day. Anywho, back to the bumbling idiots in charge of, those who were desperately still trying to find an identity for the channel. They were about overdue for another slogan, right? Stay Connected was now the generic video game TV. Whatever.
It's funny, because I don't remember either of these two tagline eras. I remember the previous one,
yeah,
and there's one there's one that you probably haven't gotten to yet that I remember, but I don't remember these two. Anyway, come on. It must have been short-lived, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, what wasn't fine was Hirschhorn announcing that September that he was no longer G4's president, with senior marketing exec for DirecTV, Fox Sports, and ESPN, Neil Tiles, filling the shoes. And what did he do with his new position? Well, I retool the network, of course, as a, quote, male-oriented one. Not dissimilar from the aforementioned Spike, but...
Man, sounds like a real change for the channel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like, it's not like a pivot, it's just them, like, running further in the same direction, like...
Can you imagine you're writing a show?
They're
sprinting, I guess I should say.
Like, imagine writing a show and, like, the notes that your producer sends you is like, crank up the cock jokes.
Well, they're like, okay, no, we're just going to go through more lists of ladies and talk about how they're all dominatrixes.
Yeah. Yeah, so with programming distancing themselves even more away from games, G4TV.com was canned. Hosts Lauren and Tina went to work with Microsoft while Keeley went back to pursue writing and producing on set instead. Filter and Sweat were also donezo. Oh, and Cheat, well, in order to align more with everything else, they replaced Corey Rouse with Kristen Adams, a semi-finalist from the first season of American Idol.
She was not bad at this show either. She just, when we were going through episodes, I made sure we got the original guy because he's so much cheesier than she was. And I wanted to make sure we remembered how cheesy Corey Rouse was.
That's fair. Although the most notable change in course here that I'm sure we all remember was that the Screensavers was then revamped as Attack of the Show. A mixture of live pop culture coverage, comedy routines, tech reviews, and news. It did well commercially and quickly, like, it shot to their most watched outing, only behind X-Play. Pereira was still on board, with the other co-host being actress Olivia Munn. And the chemistry...
Was this before she was an actress? Did this show allow her to become an actress, is I guess what I'm asking?
Yeah, well, I know, we'll get to when she jumped off to pursue that career, like, harder, but I thought she might have still had acting chops prior, but I suppose I could be wrong. I think the first movie I remember seeing her in was Iron Man 2, but that was after.
Yeah.
But yeah, the chemistry between the two was inarguable, but the over-sexualized Munn did receive some criticism. So how did y'all dig Attack of the Show when it was on? Like, I tuned in here and there, for sure.
I liked Screensavers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Andrew said, there was a middle period in between Screensavers becoming pop culture, but also before Attack of the Show became what it eventually would become, where I liked it. It was good.
Yeah.
I liked Olivia Munn. I liked Kevin Pereira. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd
it
echo
was
that
fun.
almost exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Chris, you ever watched Attack?
When they went from the Kevin and Kevin era to the Kevin and Olivia era, it was still good for a little while, and then they just kept on going harder and harder down the pop culture route.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really watch all too much of Attack of the Show. Like, between X-Play and Attack of the Show, I know that those were the bread and butter of G4.
Yeah.
But
that's a good way of putting it.
I know that they had a more devout fan base that I was not a part of.
Yeah, that's fair. People followed that, like, the two of them very closely. And if I hadn't already said it, Attack of the Show is an hour, and that was one of the few shows that was of that length. Elsewhere, Tommy Tallarico from Judgment Day would start the Video Game Orchestra live concert series, thus making his presence on Electric Playground less prominent before stepping away from it altogether. But we're now in 2006, 4 years after the channel's launch. By here, what was new G4 and what was old G4 were completely different entities. Not just in what was aired, but who was responsible for it. And boy, did they really begin to lean harder and harder into the television for straight men demo. Filter came back, except now it was hosted by model and wife of Howard Stern, Beth Ostrowski.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. Video game lists were completely removed in favor of embracing other mainstream topics until it was canceled a couple months later. It's probably why you don't remember.
Oh, okay, yeah, it all makes sense now.
The long-lasting icons was also discontinued. This included Game Makers 2, as you know, it was previously shoved into it, leaving my boy Cinematech as the only remaining program from the channel's original launch lineup. Of course, they couldn't not fuck with that either, which I'll come back to in a minute. I know Chris is waiting for it. Much of all this came direct from Comcast themselves, as it was announced in October that operations would be consolidated into the same group as the channel E, exclamation point, and the Style Network under Ted Harbert, who incidentally also formally ran it. Future moves into those smaller offices that I will get into were ultimately his doing too, since his opinion was that gaming in general was, quote, too narrow of an interest.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like this industry makes any money and sells to tens of millions of people or anything, in this country alone. So
exactly.
You need something that really everybody can get behind.
On to 2007, their slogan changed yet again to TV that's plugged in.
That's the one I remember. I
yeah.
didn't remember the last two. That's what I'm saying.
It's so funny because, I seriously, every time I turn G4 on, seeing the logo in the corner, it just became something else constantly.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
You think Don Draper came up with that one personally?
Once it was even 4G in a promotion with Sprint or something as well. And, so yeah, by where we are now, much of the earlier content wasn't even being shown in rerun anymore. Since those slots still had to be filled, they did the worst thing ever and purchased numerous outside shows for syndication. You ready for these winners?
Campus PD.
I know what they are already, so just don't
first,
make it hurt for too long.
we got Cops,
of course,
which as of 2020 is finally over, thankfully. Cheaters.
Yep.
Which
which was deceiving because you would think it was something else.
Yeah, but Chris, you nearly died laughing after hearing about on Discord that the host got stabbed.
Yeah. You're in the show trying to catch cheaters and something stabs you.
It's the only episode worth watching. I think it's on a boat. Then, as you said, there's Campus PD, which isn't that just cops at college?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Man Show, which I almost can't think of anything that maybe aged worse.
Jimmy.
Star Trek and Arrested Development for some reason.
Yeah, this is the first place I saw Arrested Development.
Yeah, nothing against them, but why? I don't know. Robot Wars. All right. There was Ninja Warrior, which at least that show is kind of cool. Not really designed for this network, but I'd certainly take it over,
cheaters.
Yeah.
No. Ninja Warrior, because of G4, got picked up by NBC. They do American Ninja Warrior now.
Right.
Ninja Warrior, the one that aired on G4, was the Japanese one, which is highly popular.
I think it became American Ninja Warrior on G4.
Did it?
And then when G4 shut down, they moved it to NBC proper.
They moved it to NBC proper.
Yeah.
And it just flourished.
Yeah.
Especially with the CrossFit boom that came.
Yep.
Yes.
I guess,
oh my God.
I guess if you do CrossFit, then you probably think of yourself as a ninja.
Doesn't your brother do CrossFit?
No. Thankfully.
Oh, I thought he did.
I would have brought that up on the night traffic.
It looks like I have something to ask him after this.
Maybe he's hiding it.
Yeah.
What's this under your bed?
Yeah. Well, Chris, while you were out partying, I was studying the art of ninjutsu.
So Cops and Cheaters and Campus PD, they would receive marathons. God, just all the time. And probably since there was 1 million episodes of them. And geez, I almost forgot about all the game shows. Unbeatable Banzukai, is that how you say it? Human Wrecking Ball, Bonsai. I don't know. What even was this venture anymore? It just seemed like chaos.
I don't know. It's like they were trying to tell me to stop watching the channel, and I applied.
Yeah.
These repeated airings led to many people, including myself, checking in much less frequently. The community.
Well, it wasn't a channel you could leave on anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess technically you still
You
could,
but you just nothing would bring you back to the couch. You just walk away.
It's like when you watch like some random channel and they're just like, coming up next, a 4-hour marathon of like
Law and Order.
fucking Married with Children. You're like, okay, well, time to change the channel then, because I don't want to watch Married with Children for 4 fucking hours.
Now, the community did remain strong online for a tad longer, much in part to their connections within the scene. This showing itself the most around E3 time, an event whose coverage was set to be expanded in an exciting summer and year, all culminating with the upcoming launches of the PlayStation 3 and Nintendo Wii. But hey, it wouldn't be a subject of Hot Button if it wasn't for some massive fuck-ups, right? A big get for them that June was that they were going to have exclusive television airing of Microsoft's entire stage presentation.
Remember, that was a big deal.
It was. And the Xbox 360 is just about hitting its stride. 2007, one of the most stacked years in gaming fucking ever, was like right over the horizon. So, what went wrong? Well, it appeared that no one was on top of when exactly commercial breaks were going to interrupt the conference. When did the first one happen? During the world premiere of the Mass Effect 1 trailer. And those sudden cuts weren't the only burden. Due to FCC regulations, a station ID had to be issued at midnight. This snipping off the big finale when footage of Halo 3 was about to be unveiled. It was a total mess, and viewers were rightfully not thrilled. The spiraling channel trekked on, though, with the next pathetic attempt to attract them young horny males in the appropriately named Midnight Spank. A block of quote-unquote sexier adult-themed content, like...
Say it.
Here we go.
Just say it.
Well, I'm going to save that for... All right, so there was Ed the Sock's Night Party, a variety show featuring Playboy models in hot tubs that was hosted by a sock puppet smoking a cigar with a grovelly voice. I guarantee it's a ripoff of the Insult comic dog.
Yeah, Triumph, the Insult comic
dog. Also, Wired for Sex, a showcase of how technology and the internet have affected sex and pornography. I can actually see that one being a bit more tasteful, I suppose.
Actually makes
sense. Less so was Video Game Vixens, a 4-part digital beauty pageant that gave out awards to fictional women game characters such as Best Bounce and Best Booty.
And this is archived?
You turned on yet? Somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. I got some research.
Then there was something called the International Sexy Lady Show, although I believe that might have been later on, but it says it was a reality thing.
They were being pretty subtle about it.
Yeah. G4's Late Night Peep Show, a compilation joint that played stuff collected from around the web like Happy Tree Friends. And then lastly, a butchering of Cinematech, now titled, say it, Chris?
Nocturnal Emissions.
Where the clip show now consisted of mostly risque moments from more suggestive releases, as well as montages from stranger Japanese games. That was bad.
Yeah, dude. Cinematech's still kicking, dude.
We didn't watch any of these, by the way. Maybe we should have, right?
You gotta, dude. You gotta.
They stuck to the plan, though, and even gave their shot again at original content, except the issue was that it was mostly junk. I knew some people that were into Code Monkeys, a crude 8-bit style sitcom chronicling the misadventures of a fictional company. It was, yeah. I don't know, what did you guys think of our viewing of it the other night?
It was a good idea. And,
yeah.
Great idea.
The execution has aged even worse.
The execution was absolutely horrendous. They went to bottom of the barrel comedy in order to fill the air. Like, there's good writing, which is like when you can make something funny and it's funny for everyone. Mm-hmm. Like I think of like the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie's fucking hilarious and it's a family friendly movie.
Yeah,
that's skilled writers.
Yeah,
right. When you're going to like boob jokes, vagina jokes, shit jokes, like that's just.
You trying to get to the racist jokes.
Yeah, that's you trying to get to, like a quick chuckle.
And the homophobia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like Code Monkeys was a great premise. I think it's like an 8-bit or 16-bit show. like it does have the potential to be something extraordinarily funny. The best part about that entire show was Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Dana Snyder, he was great.
His voice actor is phenomenal.
It's funny because like they clearly wanted, speaking of that, like the ever-growing Adult Swim crowd, though, like they just weren't coming close to it in my opinion, which is funny because I do admire the commitment to the presentation of it.
Yeah.
Like, at least, and
I love the fact that the first episode, Woz is their boss at a gaming company.
And it's actually Steve
and it's actually
Wozni.
funny, but the part that's not funny is that, like, they give the, they harass the one female worker and the one black dude who works for the company. Like
Black Steve was the
Black
character's
Steve
name.
was his name.
Yeah.
Like, get more original than that.
Yeah, I mean, that joke is literally stolen from C-Lab.
Yeah.
And not in the episode that we watched was, I might argue, one of the only good weed jokes ever written, which was the Donkey Kong "How high can you get?" Which that's a great joke. And it fits that show format.
I like
it's a shame that it's not more of that.
But yeah. Hey, the use of I do support the use of the JoJo or Joko song for the theme. That's
of course.
Yeah, that's solid. Then there was Happy Tree Friends, again, the cutesy, violent online cartoon that previously was on the mixtape of the Late Night Peep Show. It got its own full half hour. I bet that wore thin quick. I'm curious if this took up any space in your guys' brains. Spaceballs, the animated series.
I knew it existed.
It lasted one season. I never saw it and heard it was not good. But it's like... just no imprint on the culture whatsoever.
Yeah.
You can say that about a lot of animated series based off of a movie, though.
Yeah, I guess you're not totally wrong.
But then you get good animated series based off a movie, like Star Wars, the animated series.
It's still going. So out of these, Code Monkeys was definitely the one that got like some traction in a way that the others didn't. But it still only managed to last about a year. So this I didn't know. Now that we're in 08 on our timeline here, doubling down on picking up shows to re-air, they supposedly spent a shit ton of money on the rights to broadcast Heroes and Lost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I remember when they picked up syndication rights for Lost.
Doing this rather than funding anything new, obviously. I guess they thought nerds, some sci-fi and fantasy crap will do it.
Yeah.
What, like... I don't know. And then Cinematech, the last bastion of G4's launch, was then pulled from schedules. Not that any episodes are being developed since April of 2007. I just wanted to give it its final bullet point on the outline.
Randy cried a single tear.
I did. All that remained now was X-Play and Attack of the Show. Ironically, the two most profitable programs on the channel that were still determined to capture a separate audience, the gaming one, you know? In a major cost downgrade, the Santa Monica studio was closed, and whatever staff was left had to be moved to a smaller LA facility. X-Play would then go through format changes to be seen as something more professional, and the skits were gone, with extra minutes being devoted to interviews, which was okay, but its importance of popularity required production to run an exhausting 5 nights a week, which led to the crew retaliating in some pretty hilarious and envelope-pushing ways. Again, look up that podcast.
Didn't they expand it out to an hour at this point and then fill it in with segments?
Yeah. Wow. Was it full hour?
I think so. That's what my memory tells me. Is
somewhere
around this era, they were like, we want this to be every video game show we used to have, kinda, sorta. So then there were just blocks of different things that they would swap around to, like they would throw the shot to the cheat section or whatever, right?
Yeah, good. That's what cheat got kind of like. Now I'm just looking it up. Yeah, they might have. That would have been crazy.
Yeah, because they started incorporating screensavers.
Because it's cheat was the one I was about to get into, which is surprising that it lasted this long. But the Kristen Holtz basically because it was still her, but she would pop in every now and then to give tips during a couple episodes of X-Play. Going into 2009, the show was reduced to 3 nights each week, while Attack was lowered to 4, resulting in further layoffs. Viewership was also beginning to dwindle at a fast rate. to the degree that cable providers began dropping them as an offering to customers during the year. By November of 2010, DirecTV removed them from their service upon viewing the Nielsen ratings. I presume it was around here that I lost them, I feel like. I don't know. But yeah, all those efforts in absorbing Tech TV and firing folks and buying all those stupid shows from other companies were pretty much wasted. 2 networks were now essentially destroyed. Shortly after this, Olivia Munn was out of Attack of the Show to focus more on her acting, with another actress, Candice Bailey, taking her place. Layla Cayley didn't renew her contract there either. This while G4 simply became a piece of X-Play, the way Cheat was. There was a minor boost in engagement following an announcement at the 2010 Comic-Con that hands were being shook to give them exclusive broadcasting rights to Marvel anime in 2011. Something, I suppose.
Weird.
Yeah. Then it was revealed that year that the UFC and WWE were competing against one another to take over the business. At least that's what was happening until UFC eventually settled with Fox, and the WWE later just launched their own network. More time goes by. On January 5th, 2012, Neil Tiles stepped down as CEO for NBC Universal Marketing Chief Adam Stotsky. That April, the controversial decision to axe Adam Sessler went down. Prior to this, he had heard rumblings from friends within the production side of things that shit was going to happen, though it wasn't until an actual on-air taping that the rumors had weight. So I know May, Austin,
clip.
and you, Chris, watched this clip before. Andrew, I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's really nuts.
I don't think I remember this at all.
Yeah, there's a scene... I think he brings it up on the comedy button, but there's also another interview with him where he talks about it, and they show the clip. He's reading something on X-Play, and you can see him very quickly look off camera.
Yeah. And
then just go back to hosting. But that was a bunch of people in suits walking into the room.
Yeah.
Because that was after
it was
rumors that he was going to get canned.
He was like, well, they were in between filming takes. It was the vice president said that he wanted to meet him in his dressing room when they were done. And then, during those closing dialogues, like before the cut to credits, that same VP came down to the set, and that's when his eye caught him off camera, and that was his last day there.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, that's how I knew I was getting laid off, is because I got a phone call from a guy that was higher up on the chain like that, and I would not be getting a phone call from him unless I was getting laid off. I was like, oh, well, that's what this call is, when the caller ID said who it was.
Oh, no. By the end of the year, he did join the team at Revision 3, a separate games coverage network that was founded by many other ex-G4 members terminated during their reign. Sadly, they aren't around anymore either, which is a bummer, although this won't be the last we see of Adam anyway. Morgan did hang behind at X-Play, with former MTV personality Blair Herter being put in the co-hosting spot. Meanwhile, towards the end of 2012, their president, Stotsky, was meeting with the owners of Esquire magazine to rebrand the entire division as the Esquire Network. Esquire. This under a deal with the Hearst Corporation, as they wanted to build something aimed at a, quote, metrosexual audience. Fashion, travel, cooking, while also airing other NBC properties like Parks and Rec, Party Down, awesome show, and week-delayed tapings of Jimmy Fallon to invade the roster. This arrangement didn't exactly pan out, and the previously mentioned Style Network then became the final choice for Esquire over G4. Although sister channel Bravo and CNBC would get permissions to share Attack of the Show and X-Play. An odd second home for them. Yeah. In May, Pereira was gone from the family, assuming he had seen the writing on the wall. He turned his priorities on his own company, Super Creative, who I think are mostly in podcasting. I didn't dive too hard into that one. But this caused ratings to tank for Attack, especially with the rotating door of hosts coming in and out. The regular host, not the guest host.
It was bad there for a while, man. It was never the same two people twice. Like it was.
Yeah. So whoever was left following that show and X-Play were then notified that October that Boast were going to cease production. Their 2 flagships. Attack shot their finale in December and aired it on January 23rd, 2013 to coincide with the last episode of X-Play. Austin and Andrew, weren't you talking about these? The series finales? Because I saw the finale of X-Men. I never saw the finale of Attack of the Show.
Oh, I showed you the finale of the Attack of the Show is kind of just like a normal episode of Attack of the Show, but with that weird elephant in the room that it's the last one.
Oh, okay.
And then at the end, they just bring out the whole cast and crew to sit
That
there and wave.
Yeah, everybody.
And then there's the secret ending, which I showed you, which is fucking great.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't seen it, look up Attack of the Show secret ending. It's the two guys who originally hosted Screensavers in a coffee shop, and then they wake up, and he goes, I just had the weirdest dream where, like, our show stopped talking about tech and started becoming like a pop culture nightmare hour. And he's like, that is a weird dream, dude. And then they just
amazing.
Like get on jetpacks and fly to the Tech TV headquarters or something. It's very funny.
It's so good. Now, post those ending, Morgan Webb went to work at Activision Blizzard for a bit before later having a position at Bonfire Studios. And Blair Herter exited to be a part of DC Comics, at least for now in the story. G4 continued to limp on, showing nothing but those syndicated works, along with occasional reruns of classic shows. With the future pipeline empty, about all providers left carrying the channel dropped it. Time Warner, Vios, Bright House, Cablevision, even the licenses they had purchased before were starting to expire, resulting in only music being played during transitional hours. Charter Communications and Clue, CLOO, whatever that is, were said to be some of the final carriers. Same with Cox Media and Dish Network replaced them with Esquire by this point. This left old daddy Comcast holding the hot potato all alone. Their last day in operation before cutoff being November 30th, 2014. A friendly note was added to the programming schedule reading, thanks for watching, G4. It's not 100% verified, but I did see numerous people mentioning that the last two slots filled were of the pilot and finale of X-Play. They then switched back over to Pong in reference to their launch from 2002, the game board getting tinier and tinier until finally a teeny white dot accompanied by audio of a Comic-Con attendee shouting, "I'm at Comic-Con" at the top of their lungs to Pereira. It was taken from an older segment there. The single pixel then shut off the way an old analog TV would to the sound of a game over bloop from Donkey Kong on the Atari 2600 along with the Game Boy startup ring. After a few seconds, an automated message on a title card from the provider popped on the screen informing the viewer that the channel was no longer on the air and poof, G4 was gone. Kind of sad and a bit of a melancholy way to end it there if you ask me. Their slow death.
Whoever decided to do that stuff is both a poet and wrote one of the saddest endings to a story I've ever heard.
I watched it. It's somebody did I think TiVo it, and you can see it. It's just a little Pong screen going out. And, yeah. So let's take a second now to really break down what led them here. Mismanagement being the obvious key factor, a struggle to find an image. To explore some factors and suggestions from a YouTube analysis by Good Bad Flicks, where I got tons of information from, thank you, person, they pointed out how, despite the video game-related content mostly performing well, the pressure to push away from that stuff never seemed to pay off. They didn't need to spend so much on reruns of Quantum Leap and American Dad, or they needed to stand by and deliver on their initial premise. Like E3 coverage, hiccups aside, were successful. Same with their review shows. The insistence from out-of-touch TV executives to pivot into a Spike was not the right move, and gutting what was acquired from the Tech TV merger wasn't either. What is funny, though, was the potential goldmine they kind of had. When Neil Tiles spoke out in response to the network's complete overhaul, he foolishly commented the reason for it was due to gamers wanting to play games, not watch them. This statement, of course, being countered less than 2 years later when Amazon bought Twitch for $970 million after the rise of Let's Plays and personality-based streaming had made it the fourth most trafficked site on the internet.
Yep.
At least in the U.S. Yeah. It was kind of like a Netflix blockbuster situation, you know? Maybe if he had bothered to try and foresee any of this, G4 wouldn't have crashed and burned the way it did. Instead of the general thinking being in terms of traditional cable television, it probably should have been treated more to that of a service or a website. Imagine if they had embraced the competitive side of the market outside of just Arena. esports are now a colossally huge business, and they were in just the right position to take advantage of that. Publishers would have likely killed for this exposure at the time. It didn't even matter how long they ran. The channel had open slots before filling it with garbage. The shows they did create were enough and had plenty of fan interaction. They weren't that expensive to produce either. The extra hours outside of these could have been devoted to anything from tournaments to speedrun to even tabletop games like Magic or D&D. Odds are there'd be serious crossover in the demographic. Plus, they had the connections to back them, the talent to run it. I understand hindsight is 2020 and all that, but like, just think of how much more like nerd culture has ballooned out into the mainstream these past 15 years. Like, many consider the prospect like had been doomed to fail from the start, but I don't believe that that's true. Like, you know, right when Kevin Pereira was leaving Attack of the Show, he did an interview with Charles Hirschhorn, the network's former president and founder. He honestly regretted the sloppy takeover of Tech TV, while further saying that if he was able to do it again, he would have done it in a way that wouldn't have alienated both audiences. He also didn't present himself here as being much of a gaming enthusiast, and that was okay. He respected them. He saw the value, and that was sort of all they needed as long as the correct people were put in charge under him. Even his scouting of experienced cast members was handled very intelligently. Granted, the communication between these hires and the production officials was indeed poor. Upon facing a downfall, input was often ignored, and it didn't appear that the channel itself was ever willing to stand behind those that they were that were doing their best to help it. The expendable nature of working under G4 had to be an awfully toxic environment. All while at the same time, the market was growing bigger and bigger each day. It didn't take long for something that began as unique and punk rock to morph into a shitty version of the same channels they wanted to avoid and actively mocked, just like MTV. Irony. But the amateurish charm was their identity, and a significant portion of those brought on board were dedicated into making it special. Looking back, though, it did greatly assist in launching a lot of careers and paved the road in making games coverage and entertainment more accessible. Finding the right revenue path, however, lied the issue, only causing higher-ups to hammer down harder on the passionate people keeping it alive. Even if that stuff was figured out, was their demise still unavoidable? After all, the demo that was being targeted was already flocking to the internet to consume media in a similar spirit for free. In the end, though, it merely became a failed experiment in uniting video games with TV, a proposal that no one would dare attempt again. Or at least that's what everyone ever fucking thought. I've learned to never say never on this podcast, because just last year, on July 24th, 2020, the official Twitter accounts of G4, X-Play, and Attack of the Show were suddenly reactivated and posted a short teaser video announcing the revival of the once dead-ass network. This underneath a message that simply read, "We never stopped playing," after over half a decade of silence. It also gained a lot of attention, and it happened during Comic-Con at Home, their first virtual streaming edition of San Diego's biggest convention. The website came back as well, cheekily reopening with a playable version of Pong embedded. Mm-hmm. If the user won, the page would then redirect to a mailing list. I never actually did this. The once initially perceived as a joke story was then further confirmed to be real when a month later, on August 12th, Olivia Munn revealed her negotiations on a multi-year deal to join again. Fellow veteran Adam Sessler then signified his return in September through a video uploaded on G4's YouTube channel by hopping into the role of his fictional Crazy Adam character from X-Play and encouraging fans to submit applications or nominate personalities in an effort for the venture to scale the field in the hunt for new talent. On November 16th, G4 released a press statement saying a special event was coming called a very special G4 holiday reunion. It was hosted by a wonderful cool guy, Ron Funches, as well as many other former familiar faces of the channel. It was presented on Twitch a week later and even made its debut on television through Sci-Fi. There was a charity drive to fund community partners, other rad dude, Austin Creed, a.k.a. Xavier Woods, the wrestler, was shown to be the first host added to the team following that search. Coming into this year, it was announced on January 28th that G4 was fully reinstating Attack of the Show and X-Play, and they prepped to drop, quote, sometime in summer 2021. February 5th, Indiana Froroskurin Black and Olive May of League of Legends esports casting fame said they would be involved in an upcoming show centered around professional gaming, not unlike what Good Bad Flick suggested and I supported a few minutes ago. 7 days after that, Pereira stated that he was now back in to take his old spot at Attack, Blair Herter as well. Otherwise, I guess Blair was X-Play, but otherwise they've tweeted that they were looking into air more anime and attend more conventions when that's possible. But their commitment was absolutely beginning to show here. Though, just to temper expectations, seeing as that we are currently in April, only time will tell if they really truly nail it this go around. It's honestly tough to even say what exactly G4 2.0 is and where they can fit into the highly competitive, fast-moving, and ever-changing world of video game content creation in the modern generation, regardless of being free from the shackles of television executives. So, just to end it on a little bit of a question here to you guys. How do you think this will do, and what do you think it'll be? What would you do if you were in charge of it? Will there be room in such an already crowded space? Could it prosper, die all over again?
I mean, these are very different questions. What I think it will be versus what I would do.
I think that it needs to be personality focused.
Oh yeah.
Because just doing games coverage is not enough anymore. And I think that there's
just too many places for it.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly an opening for high production value video game content featuring teams of people.
Yeah.
Because everything is so singular now. But I don't know. I think that it all depends. I think that they can get away with it depending on how much growth they want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hindsight is always 20/20, right? And G4 overall, the executives made short-term decisions that eventually eroded the brand over time into fucking nothing, right?
Yeah.
And it could have been the biggest thing now if they had just waited out the shitstorm at the time.
Totally, yeah.
They really could have helped cable TV, really. They are the prime candidates for streaming services, which a lot of big channels nowadays are having difficulty adjusting. How many people are actually subscribed to Peacock, besides maybe Austin?
I don't have Peacock.
Oh,
that's the one. I don't even have Peacock.
How many streaming services are out there, right? And you're talking about these cable TVs are having difficulty getting access to this marketplace that Netflix and Hulu have kind of monopolized.
It's funny because they haven't said any sort of payment structure for this. It's presumably would just be
Twitch.
When this
YouTube,
stuff came out, G4 could have been the prime service for something like a streaming because most people go online anyway to watch video games.
Oh yeah,
right.
In an alternate world, Twitch could have just been called G4.
Yes,
100%,
100%. And they struggled for years with this issue with brand identity, and the thing about brand identity is that the longer it remains rock solid, the stronger your brand becomes, right? Mm-hmm. So what could have been the dark years of G4 became the death of G4. But if they weren't so short-sighted in how can we recoup losses on this, there was no larger vision into what the future could have held. And coming back now is completely plausible.
Yeah.
Right? But how do you, because for one, there is a need for high production value, right? There's a million rise and fall documentaries that are 45 minutes, but when you watch them, it's literally a slideshow of images from the games. There's no actual production value in, it's just people's thoughts, that kind of thing. There's very few, I shouldn't say very few in the grand scheme of things of YouTubers that have very high production values, right?
Yeah.
You guys probably watched a lot more of them than I do. The only one I can think of is he's pretty despised. He's got something with the Zionists. JonTron.
What?
John.
I was very confused.
I know, yeah. JonTron has very high production value in his videos, very very high production value. But like, there's very few people in that echelon that, and these are the resources that networks are equipped to provide at a very cheap cost, because the barrier to entry into
Right,
high
but,
production
do you
is
think-
very very high for a single person.
Do you think they would change like like if they were standing behind single content creators, though, that they would try and shape them into doing something
no, they
different,
have
or
to,
would they just hands
no,
off?
You can't try. If I was managing G4, I would take a look at the landscape and say we cannot compete with the hyper and blistering fast pace that video games and video games news evolve into, right? Every day there is new breaking news, and then 5 updates that happen afterwards, and post updates about what
there's
happened.
an endless amount of avenues to find all that
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
So if I was managing G4, I would stick to the big brands. That I would stick to coverage of the industry itself, because that generally moves slower.
I agree, yeah.
And I would stick
Well,
to games and genres that
if
don't
they
move as quickly.
If they had the connections to get that news firsthand, rather than them just kind of regurgitating what other outlets are already delivering.
Getting news firsthand is like the Game Informer model, and that's not really working out for Game Informer.
Good
these
point.
days either.
Yeah, where it's like,
You
hey,
know?
we paid for this, to like our cover story. Thing.
Like
you're
think-
not
right.
wrong.
I think that they have the production and brand recognition and marketing dollars to kind of like surface things.
Yes, they have the reach.
They have the reach where like I would just take things like AGDQ,
Yeah, absolutely.
speed running. Like IGN has a series called
And look at the production of those. Like
IGN has a series that I love called Devs React to Speedruns, where they just watch
Yeah.
speedruns and then comment on them. Like that with some production value would be great.
Yep. I also would really hope that they would use that reach to do things like connect, like almost like Pulse when it first came out, connect industry veterans to like questions or things that people who are actually playing games now are concerned about.
Yeah.
What is the head of Xbox marketing think of the state of video games right now? Where do they see it going? Right? Like, I would love to know that. Why? I may hate their answer, but I would love to know it.
Do you think it's also like it makes sense for them to like extend a little bit outside of video games, where there is
Like tech in general?
Well, I guess, yeah, kind of, or just, I mean,
Pop culture.
yeah. But in a more
Tech and pop culture, because you have like
but I'm gonna say in a more respectable way, like like
Sure.
yeah, sure. I mean, tech has come such a long way. You have like fucking Apple and all of them do reveals, conferences and reveals in the same way the video game industry does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have Marvel.
If you're covering CES, you're covering Comic-Con.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Cover E3, cover CES, cover like all the big gaming conventions.
PAX and Tokyo Game Show.
I guess maybe a better way to describe it is like the other day we were talking about people who now have made careers off scam centers, right? Like you could do a piece literally interviewing them about what they do, as opposed to doing a piece about some viral video that just went viral last week.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of sites out there that are covering viral videos, but there are not a lot of people that are doing.
I think it's not even just working with individual YouTubers, or I should say content creators who want that freedom to be able to like, be independent from a system. But it would probably make sense if they were to partner with like, this is just an example, but like a group like College Humor that's not doing well right now, but still that has a lot, they have a lot of nerd focused, like shows and videos that gamers would be interested in. You could even frame them more like in like, but it's, I don't know. I'm curious to see if this is even shaping to be like a 24-hour streaming thing that people can just flip on, whatever, like we've said.
I mean, it would have to be on demand, right? Like that's what all of this stuff is now. Like I don't know that it would just be streaming, because when you have production value, you've got to do takes and stuff like that. I mean, like what I think it'll be, which is again different than what I would do. What I think it'll be is not quite the end of Attack of the Show, but pretty close to the end of Attack of the Show, like one of the last eras, but not the last era. And I think same goes for X-Play. I think that's what they're aiming for. You mentioned that they were going to have like a League of Legends caster involved in there, which to me, and I hope I'm wrong, says to me that they are going to do League of Legends esports stuff, but that is a thing that for that game in particular, Riot is already providing. So hopefully they are doing that and that level of production value, but for other games, and I think there's a very good market for that. And I think that is one of many facets they could go. Hopefully they... All right, and here's what I would do. What I would do is I would keep your X-Play and your Attack of the Show. I would keep an esports focused thing, whatever form that takes. And then I would realize that the value comes from a mix of long form and short form content these days on streaming services, right?
Yeah.
You want your 45-minute to an hour-long show like those, but you also just want, you know what? I want to turn on, a
speed run that's like several hours long.
Yeah, speedruns work too, but it's like it's like, okay, I want to turn on this, I'm a big Magic the Gathering fan. I want to watch this weekly Magic the Gathering show where they make goofy decks that are dumb strategies, but they're funny when they work.
No, that's a great idea.
That's what I mean. Like a 10 to 12 minute thing. That's kind of like like when you watch like a Giant Bomb, like 13 Deadly Sims or whatever, right?
Totally.
Like that kind of thing, where it's like we have now constructed our own dumb rule set around this game that already exists. It'll be a good laugh. It doesn't cost much to make, and you can get one of these regularly.
See, here's the thing. You're 100% right, but I'm curious how how would partners be incentivized? I guess just having an increased budget, but it's like, say, like, you notice something like NoClip, like, Danny O'Dwyer's thing, and it's like, well, he's already working outside the system on his own and accomplishing that by, I wonder if they were like, hey, like, you could have a show on our, like, block or channel or whatever, like, what would encourage, not just him, but somebody in that position to want to join that, unless it is the promise of just like an increased resources.
In that case, I'd imagine that the incentive is we are now capturing like more interests that are in this gaming bucket, right?
Yeah.
And it's like if I subscribe to this service, I get that production value for whichever particular niche of a niche is in this interest.
It depends on who they're trying
and
to
there's
capture.
bleed over from other things they're watching.
It depends. Like if you're talking about a content creator, there's no incentive for the highest echelon of content creators to go over and put their show on there, right?
Right.
Like the top Twitch streamers are not going to
are pretty comfortable, I think, doing what they're doing.
They're pretty comfortable with their $800,000 in donations they get every 6 months, that kind of thing. They're not going to go over. The people that are interested in expanding out are like esports teams, right?
Yeah.
Like esports teams they only know how to do one thing, and that's manage an esports team, right? But if you're trying to get like something like what is it like to be a professional gamer in 2021, now you have like, oh, what do you know, the Golden Guardians have signed up to be on a block with G4 doing a 5-part documentary about like this is what our players go through in their daily lives. Then they have the resources to be able to do like an actual high budget, high production thing,
right?
And that they otherwise would not have had. And when it comes to like commentators, like it is going to be personality based. The thing about commentators in different esports fields, not a whole lot of them actually have their own show. They just show up at events, and it's kind of expected that they do. There are a few out there that have their own show, like side things, but they would greatly benefit from joining up.
I wonder if viewership is still enough in revenue to keep this kind of budget, or if you'd have to still work with publishers and
you got to work smart.
Ads, my friend, especially if they're offering it for free. What you would have is a free front end that has interspersed with NordVPN and Ridge Wallet and whatever other Raid Shadow Legends.
But it's like that.
But then the back end would
because
be
that'll
a pay
work
model.
if you're just a single person on YouTube. If you're a company of one, or even if
you replace Express and NordVPN and Raid Shadow Legends with larger advertisers. You replace them.
Yeah,
with
you build the walls out of Mountain
Dew
Dew and the tables out of Doritos.
Like you replace it with League of Legends mobile ads or Hearthstone ads, right? from big companies because you are backed by Comcast. You have leverage.
You don't want to test the tolerance of viewers,
into larger
because
corporations and their ads.
People do get annoyed with that stuff.
I hope that G4 makes it, and I'll tune in to see what goes.
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
find
excited
out.
to see what they do.
Honestly, like I said, if they just were like, "Hey, we're gonna re-air a bunch of our classic shit on a Twitch channel in good faith," I'll be like,
"Oh my god, they could call it Cinematech."
But that's the tale of G4, y'all. A dense timeline of dreams, twists, turns, and errors. I hope their return to form is successful, like you said, Chris, at least for those excitedly wanting to bring something as different and as novel as what that was back into the landscape again. Thank you so much for being here with me, everyone. I know this was kind of a long one. Not all of them will be. Shout out once more to that YouTuber, Good Bad Flicks, and check him out. I believe he still uploads pretty regularly. Otherwise, thanks to the rest of YouTube, IMDb, wikis, the Wayback Machine, of course, for the endless forums I browsed. Sorry if I forgot anything. I don't think I did. I didn't bring up Web Soup, I guess. The last thing I will say, though, regardless of how G4 2021 does, who's ever got the rights or the recorded tapes or copies or whatever of everything we talked about today, get them out there if you can. Save those pieces of history, because, man, so much of this shit has just been lost to time, and I hate that. There are a portion of a few of these out there. Some of these shows anyway, but none of them are clearly organized or appear complete. G4ZD Tech TV in particular has been doing a great job of trying to collect and preserve all that old footage, though without any DVDs ever releasing. I know that has probably been super tough. I want every episode of Cinematech, goddammit. Blair says he's got stuff but hasn't been able to access it due to COVID procedures. I don't know, though. I'll believe it when I see it. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Andrew, over the interwebs. It's been fun, and if you want to take us away with some plugs, Austin.
Yeah. Welcome back. We have a whole bunch of
episodes.
It's
been a while.
from the past. You can access all those at hotbuttoncast.com. And we have links there where you can subscribe on iTunes and Spotify and all those services. Review us on iTunes. And also check out our social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at HotButtonCast.
Yep, we're back. And keep yourself occupied with checking out maybe some of our old library while new stuff's coming together. Mm-hmm. Andrew, Chris, do you guys have anything you want to plug? I mean, Andrew, I know you're working on stuff. I don't know how much you could say, but I think I can say that I'm working on a cool game called Rushdown Revolt. It's like if you combine Super Smash Bros. And Guilty Gear. It's pretty dope. Yeah. A lot of fun. You can go to rushdownrevolt.com and buy a Slacker pack, which will get you into all of the closed alphas. We occasionally have open alphas, but this will get you access all the way through launch. Yeah.
And you can check that out. It's
right on. I got it through Steam. I think you too, Austin. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no plugs. But if you tell me there's a promising career in selling bootleg Cinematech DVDs on the corner,
I'll be your only customer and
$5
keep you in business.
$5 a DVD. No, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.